Over 78,000 demons, facing down a single barbarian wielding a colossal blade. Locked in a demonic binding spell, his defenses shatter under the dark magic. His stats are completely wrecked, followed immediately by a lethal severance curse, setting up the ultimate instant kill spell, reserved exclusively for high-tier demon lords. Our shredded warrior is completely jacked, yet suddenly missing half of his arms. The demon sneers and turns his back, smugly convinced the battle is over. Thinking this Manhwa just ended in victory, he turns back to find the barbarian standing. How is he upright when hopelessly outnumbered against thousands of savage fiends? He fights for those who summoned him, backed by a divine angelic pact. The angels blessed him with maxed-out skills, giving him an insane linguistic edge. To utterly disrespect these monsters, a completely unhinged warrior with god-tier abs. Yet his pure madness was forged entirely by the cruelty of these fiends. Demon casualties quickly skyrocket, dropping faster than logic in an anime fight. Their ranks plunge to under 14,000, yet the lone barbarian remains untouched. Aside from weird divine perks, the angels gifted him ridiculous cheat abilities. Those rock-hard abs are all natural, but his true trump card is regeneration. Chop off his limbs, shatter his torso, or slice off his head, and his flesh heals back instantly, making you almost pity these doomed demons. They face an unkillable monster with infinite health against their finite army. The war drags on, but the brutal outcome has been decided already. The demon horde panics, seeing a shredded lunatic far more terrifying than them. Their count crashes to 10,700, while his divine buffs hold. The surviving 10,000 fiends desperately unite for one final joint strike. Knowing full well it is an ambush, the hulking brute charges straight in. He could have enjoyed a quiet, peaceful life tucked away in the mountains. Instead, he chose vengeance to butcher every fiend that slaughtered his family. In particular, the villain Devil House sparked the creation of this muscular demon slayer. He is the mastermind who baited our hero into an anti-magic zone, nullifying his divine blessings before unleashing a blinding barrage of black arrows. Pierced like a pincushion, the unstoppable warrior still pushes through the pain, warning Devil House to start running with his legs instead of talking trash. Panicking for survival, Devil House commands the entire remaining legion to attack together. Little do they realize, this absolute beast represents humanity's ultimate peak powerhouse. A monstrous warrior who evolves through combat, crushing entire legions single-handedly. Unleashing raw savage might, he trims the enemy army down to one. Now it is time for the long-awaited one-on-one duel he craved for so long. Devil House stares in disbelief as one mortal annihilates his entire legion, leaving the final demon boss completely disarmed and utterly helpless before him. He can finally return home to Germania and rebuild his ruined homeland. Maybe even sail with Luffy for the One Piece or assist Thorin. Or seek out Vinland, but Devil House refuses to die by human hands, tempting suicide before the shredded barbarian steps in to finish the job. He raises his colossal blade to claim that wretched demon lord's life. Yet our hero underestimates the fiend as Devil House unleashes an ancient hex, triggering total stone petrification that turns the mighty barbarian into solid rock. He succeeds, leaving the barbarian petrified in stone as his nemesis walks away. Moments later, the warrior opens his eyes to find a random bystander standing nearby, openly admiring the detailed craftsmanship of the supposed statue standing right before him. This onlooker steps way too close to the statue, and that simple mistake triggers the warrior's petrification to crack and shatter, completely breaking the ancient curse. With his freedom restored, his immediate response to the clueless civilian is to grab the guy by his skull and slam him hard against the wall. Naturally, the surrounding crowd loses their minds, screaming in sheer terror. Because screaming definitely calms down an enraged giant built like a brick fortress. Free to move at last, his mind fixates instantly on hunting down his nemesis. He brings up his status window, checking the remaining demon count across the realm. The tally has skyrocketed to nearly 1 million, while he remained frozen in stone. Even stranger is the sudden appearance of over 1.3 million active hunters. Once again, he stands as the sole surviving barbarian in an unfamiliar world. He genuinely cannot understand the panic over tossing one man across the pavement. To him, it was barely a warm-up. That is when an agent named Kim Jinseok flashes his badge, confronting the barbarian for wrecking peace in his sector. The man boldly demands identification from a warrior who clearly answers to no one. Barbarian instantly hoists him by the throat, demonstrating his overwhelming physical dominance. To prove he bows to nobody, just as tensions peak, an attractive woman sprints onto the scene and halts him, calling him out by his true name. Wolfgang, the legendary hero known for swearing his absolute allegiance to Germania. Towering over the petite woman, Wolfgang demands to know how she uncovered his identity. She introduces herself as Yaren Kang from the Central Korean Hunter Association. She politely asks the massive warrior to accompany her somewhere quiet to talk. Before Wolfgang can dismiss the offer, she plays her most convincing trump card. She promises him endless warm food alongside a private, secure place to rest. An offer of free meals and shelter proves far too tempting to decline. Wolfgang agrees, and stepping through a warp gate, they materialize near their destination. Wolfgang stares in disbelief at how drastically the modern world has transformed around him. Yet he maintains his cold composure, taking in the alien sights and vibrant skylines. Guiding him toward headquarters, Yaren explains the fundamentals behind their hunter system. Hunters are specialized combatants trained to eradicate monsters pouring out from interdimensional rifts. She details how modern awakened fighters train their abilities and cultivate combat energy. The Hunter Association operates as a powerful organization overseeing these licensed warriors. Demons ranked A-grade and higher fall directly under official government jurisdiction, while private guild hunters handle the lower-tier threats across cities. The association focuses on scouting, training, and deploying promising new recruits. Wolfgang had become their prime target after scouts uncovered the truth about him, discovering that the ancient statue was actually a legendary warrior bound under a petrification curse. The nation faces a severe shortage of elite S-rank hunters against the growing crisis, as demonic legions continue pouring endlessly through uncontrolled dimensional gates. Conventional defense methods are proving utterly useless against their overwhelming numbers. Yet when Yaren uncovered the reality behind the petrified ancient powerhouse, a daring scheme crossed her mind, one she plans to keep closely guarded for now. Forget Victoria's secret, now it's all about uncovering Yaren's secrets. Back in her office, she treats Wolfgang to a hot pizza. Wolfie inspects the slice carefully, and just one single bite shows him why nobody likes sharing good food. Absolute perfection. Meanwhile, Yar explains that they called in dozens of healers to cure Wolfgang's petrified body. Yet nothing worked, hard as in literally turned to stone. Still, Wolfie could care less about fancy magic when he has delicious pizza right here. He points at the dark, bubbly liquid and asks what it is. Yaren grabs the bottle and hands it over with all the fizz intact. He tries chugging the whole thing, instantly coughing soda straight into Yaren's face. Still, he loves it. Just wait until he tastes other modern drinks. Yaren wipes her face clean and asks if she can question him while he demolishes every last slice of pizza. He nods along. Wolfie has definitely spotted the massive shift in this modern world compared to the ancient times he used to live in, she explains to him that it is the 21st century and asks what era he came from. Wolfgang has no clue about modern calendars, but remembers people saying Rome was founded 1,000 years before his time. Yaren leaps with sheer joy like a broke gambler, hitting $20 after losing his home. Her wild theory was spot on. Wolfgang is straight out of the Middle Ages. Interviewing a genuine medieval warrior as an archaeologist is an absolute dream come true. Before this, the oldest living relics she ever spoke with were folks born before the year 2000. Wolfgang cannot relate, nor does he care. He just wants another pizza slice while she mentions demon outbreaks. Wolfgang then asks if she recognizes that cursed demon named Devil House, the demon who turned him to stone. Yaren has never heard the name before. She even searches the Hunter Gallery app, pulling up 0 results. With tears welling up, poor Wolfie swears he will hunt that demon down and return straight to Germania. Yaren delivers the harsh reality check that his homeland has long since fallen. Over 1,000 years have passed, and those ancient lands are now controlled by someone else entirely. Before anyone starts arguing in the comments, the author's wild historical accuracy does not really change the story. Right or wrong on world history, one brutal truth remains totally undeniable. You are definitely still single. He smashes the wall in pure rage after realizing that his entire civilization is buried in history books, yet he still refuses to give up on his family. Yaren bluntly warns him that his ancestors are probably fossils. or crude oil claimed by global superpowers by now. Still, he clings to hope because of the ancient oath he swore, for the time being. He demands that Yaren track down Devil House. He already noticed earlier that she desperately needed his raw power to complete some secret mission of her own. That is why she broke her back trying to lift his stone curse, so he proposes a mutual deal. Help him track down Devil House, and he will gladly follow her every command. First step, Yaren needs to establish his legal identity since he lacks basic identification. The fastest route is getting an official hunter license, which should be light work. Considering how ridiculously powerful and rock-solid his physical build looks, barely 2 hours. In the modern year, and the ancient warrior already realizes how chaotic humanity is. Still, Yaren highlights the perks like government aid and legal resident status. Once he rises as a top hunter, free benefits will cover everything anyway. All those corporate workers are grinding hard every day just to pay for his aid. He will pocket 10 million won if he passes the entry exam. She could convert the cash into his old era currency, but that might get her cancelled since those folks are people now too. With some luck, he could form a pact with constellations, the celestial guardian deities of the stars. They back up contracted hunters and watch over them from above. Wolfgang understands angels, but knows nothing about constellations, which makes total sense. Since they showed up 15 years ago, making them younger than millennials, they pull up to a testing venue, packed tighter than a trophy case because today the Hunter Academy students who meet the legal age limit are all here. She points at a massive wall looking like something out of Shadow Garden, explaining that this wall of testing holds the ancient divine power of Leonidas I. This Leonidas I reigns as the constellation of Spear and Shield. Scoring over 500 points secures a pass. Yaren quickly fills out the registration for our protagonist Wolfgang de Graaf, a legendary name that truly fits the shredded beast he is. Since he lacks any modern identification, he needs a sponsor. While Yaren presents her hunter license, Wolfgang asks about the long spear that nearly naked guy is holding. Yaren explains it is the spear of Leonidas, signaling the test is finally starting. Once that spear gets driven straight into the stone, Leonidas's power will awaken across the entire testing wall. The half-naked tester then drives the weapon in, unleashing divine power with top-tier animation flair. Meanwhile, Wolfgang cannot fathom why the entire crowd is freaking out over this. The proctor calls for total silence. Right at that moment, an overwhelming aura surges out, detected not by Wolfgang, but by the constellation itself. A blue window pops up, announcing Leonidas has spotted someone intriguing and demands him to step forward immediately. The crowd gasps. A deity is actually calling out someone by choice. The first challenger stepping up is Yuna from Qingga, renowned elite from a top family led by Master Hunter Ko Songyang. Famous for pure sportsmanship, her immense presence makes everyone wonder if she already secured a constellation contract. The deity's call must be for her, leading everyone to believe they are witnessing a legendary bond being forged. Not a simple temporary pact, but the real thing. Yuna strikes the wall with brutal force, a massive score of 254 flashes, easily rivaling active pro hunters. Such high numbers rarely appear during standard academy exams. Yuna beams with pride over her result, but nobody else shares her joy because the constellation angrily demands the next applicant, still calling for the chosen one to step up. While not speaking aloud, its booming rage is obvious. Through the system notifications, Yuna freezes in shock, but the real nightmare hits when the Celestial Guardian abruptly terminates its provisional pact with her after that underwhelming strike. Right then, a massive jacked guy shoves Yuna aside, declaring that the star deity clearly was not searching for someone like her. Especially with him around, she should have been grateful for a temporary pact that she threw away so easily. This brute is Kim Jinwoo, who already holds a contract with the barbarian descendant. He powers up his fist to maximum capacity. He punches the wall like an unhinged husband, straight out of the 1950s. The entire crowd freezes in shock at the raw power he just unleashed. He is just a student, yet logs an insane score of over 2,000. Nobody has ever broken 2,000 during a promotion exam before. That puts him right beside active C-rank hunters, yet something is off. The constellation grows furious, leaving a completely baffled Jinwoo to question his patron. He asks why Leonidas remains displeased after guaranteeing this would suffice. Instead, he gets a harsh warning telling him to mind his arrogant tongue. When speaking to a legendary hero who slaughtered thousands of demons, right then, Wolfgang strides right onto the stage, telling Jinwoo to take his knockoff solo leveling act. Somewhere else because he is definitely not the protagonist here, Jinwoo snaps back, demanding he wait his turn, but Wolfgang makes it painfully clear that his time is up, he better leave before Wolfgang breaks his word. Given to Yaren, when Jinwoo grabs his arm, he gives Wolfgang the perfect excuse to rip him apart so his family can piece together a puzzle at the funeral. But catching Yaren begging him to stay calm, he decides to act civilized. Wolfgang steps down and asks about the deity backing this so-called hunter. Naturally, he refuses to address the entity with any cheap reverence. This enrages Jinwoo, who demands an immediate apology for blaspheming his master. No amount of muscle excuses such blatant disrespect toward a divine being. He warns him of divine wrath, but Wolfgang simply wants to hear it. Straight from whatever constipated spirit he is rambling about, Wolfgang drops his name, stating that any true barbarian descendant should recognize it instantly. Instantly, the constellation manifests in a flash and drops to its knees, reverently hailing Wolfgang as the supreme living legend of all barbarians. It admits that mere borrowers of barbarian might have zero right to challenge him, shifting blame onto the brainless fool who failed to recognize greatness. Wolfgang lets the spirit slide, but demands fitting punishment for such arrogance. The brat must answer for abusing loaned barbarian strength. Agreeing completely, the constellation severs the sacred contract and disowns Jinwoo on the spot. It even curses his entire lineage, leaving Yaren utterly stunned by what transpired. She can only wonder just how massive this monster is in status, size, and everywhere else. Wolfgang then turns toward Leonidas, warning the entity to brace for impact. Leonidas feels truly honored by the presence of a real hero and summons divine power, while Wolfgang unleashes a terrifying surge of aura. The sheer pressure crushes the entire room, leaving spectators paralyzed by absolute dread. Nobody has ever witnessed such overwhelming strength. The tables have completely turned. He is casually waiting for the divine spirit to surrender completely. He has not even gone all out, but Yaren is terrified he might blow up the arena. His raw presence threatens to blow the spectators away into the atmosphere. Someone needs to stop him before he gets branded as a walking catastrophe. Suddenly, the oppressive pressure vanishes into thin air while the crowd reels in shock. Wolfgang scoops up Yaren and walks away, declaring the exam completely meaningless. Without another word, he leaves behind Leonidas's shattered holy relic. The divine artifact lies broken, leaving the examiners utterly clueless on what to do next. Just like that, the gate shatters too. Over at the Hunter Association office, Wolfie is chugging down coke while Yaren watches the news report about the broken artifact. Destroyed, Wolfie brags that the constellation actually put up a decent fight. Even though it was clearly too weak for him, right then their Q ticket gets called. So Yaren, Wolfie, and his menacing aura all march up to the counter. Looks like the desk clerk was already waiting for them to arrive. Before handing over the license, they have to settle the damaged relic bill. But since accidents like this almost never happen, it is no small deal. The fine comes out to 100 million won if Wolfie cannot pay. It falls on his guarantor. Yaren is horrified, but the suited clerk says they got off easy. By only paying for the broken wall, the artifact was never supposed to break. So they cannot even put a price on it. A bit later, Yaren hands Wolfie his brand new hunter license alongside a massive pile of debt. His 10 million reward for passing was deducted, bringing the balance down to 90 million won. Wolfie has no idea if that is pocket money or a fortune. Honestly, it depends on rank. Yaren certainly does not have that kind of cash. So she cannot cover it. Hunters make bank, but only top-tier combat classes. Everyone else barely survives, often ditching their family only for their kid to befriend an assassin, battle some creepy clown, and take down an ant king. Just to see their father again. Yaren is just an archaeologist hunter, so she has to chase sponsors just to scrape by. Honestly, it is a miracle she has not opened an adult page yet. Even with combat skills, Wolfie is only ranked F, making 100 million impossible to earn. Sure, everyone watched him smash an unbreakable relic, yet they still gave him bottom F rank. Why even evaluate him? This is what happens when the author only draws abs. Instead of writing plot, at least he is not that absurdly wealthy tycoon guy. With the broken finance system, Either way, Wolfie declares he can simply crush every monster in sight and wipe away Yaren's debt worries immediately. He tells her to take him straight to a dungeon right now, but she explains that hunters need an agency first, a greedy middleman that takes no real risks. Yet walks away with the biggest bag. That is an agency for you. They secure dungeon rights and handle filing, taking 20% or even 30% cuts. On every raid, being foreign uneducated, with terrible credit immediately gets. Wolfie rejected by every guild, turns out shredded abs and a clean bald head are not what agencies look for. It seems his wild appearance is the problem. Shaving the beard is out of the question, since it represents true manhood. And walking around dressed in raw beast hides is definitely scaring everyone away. Wolfie insists the pelt belongs to the wolf tribe, but Yaren points out that nobody in the city cares. They cannot fix his ruined credit. But they can at least give him a proper makeover, while she tries to tame his wild look. A shady guy in a suit walks up to them and offers them a spot at his agency called Manhwa, of course. Any agency with a goofy name like that is bound to be total trash. In fact, Manhwa is notorious for scamming naive rookie hunters, the recruiter noticed them getting turned down everywhere, claiming their own hiring standards are relaxed today. They should team up. He demands a 40% cut under a 3-year deal. That covers 2 dungeon raids weekly, backed by an offer of 20 million won. Murin refuses to sign such a slave contract, rising to walk away immediately. But Wolfie counters with his own terms, demanding a 100 million signing bonus instead. The slick agent wearing a collar-styled tie stays sharp. He agrees to the massive bonus, provided Wolfie signs for 10 years with a 50-50 split. Just like that, the scene shifts to the bus stop, where Yaren chews out the warrior for signing that awful deal on impulse. She asks if Wolfgang takes agreements too lightly, but he assures her he has seen entire empires crumble over bad contracts. He knows exactly what vows mean, so when she asks why he took it, Wolfgang explains his ancient code. He always fights for whoever supports him. That rule guides his life. Right now, his only goal is tracking down Devil House. He swore a blood oath with the Archangel Seraphim to wipe out every demon. In exchange, his lost family and tribe will return. Hearing this, Yaren apologizes for speaking carelessly, without realizing what a crushing burden Wolfgang carries. Even so, she mentions he is the sole survivor from the ancient era she has met. She views him as her biggest breakthrough, yet she cannot help feeling concerned. Deep down, she feels personally responsible for guiding him through modern society. The agency rep suddenly cuts in, announcing that the living quarters are ready. Later that night, back inside her room, Yaren receives an urgent text from Young-soo about the ancient relic that got smashed earlier that day. Chang Hyan asks if the culprit is really that legendary warrior she mentioned. Ya confirms he is indeed that stone fighter. Her friends call it a massive achievement, though her only real accomplishment so far is racking up a huge 100 million debt. Her friends insist she turn the guy over to the authorities, but she refuses to betray him. Instead, she keeps worrying about how he is settling into his new room, regretting that she did not buy him a soda before leaving. Meanwhile, as the agent shows him the apartment, Wolfgang asks when raids start. The agent explains he can run dungeons Monday through Friday, as long as he clears 2. Hearing that, Wolfgang asks if he can just raid all 5 days straight, free. Extra labor is every company's dream, so the agent happily agrees without hesitation. He instructs him to wait at the parking lot once the alert rings on his phone. With instructions given, the agent heads out, leaving Wolfgang standing alone in a dim room that resembles a cramped dwarf cave. The warrior decides his first priority is igniting a torch, but without any open flame around the apartment. He tries using that glowing rectangular gadget called a smartphone, reaching out. He grabs his plastic keycard by mistake, baffled why it looks tinier than the one Yaren carried. This modern era feels ridiculously overcomplicated, and he quickly realizes surviving in this strange world will take serious work. Come sunrise, Wolfgang heads down to the parking lot to meet his dungeon escort, some arrogant punk. The guy glares at Wolfgang's bold outfit, clearly burning with pure envy over his chiseled physique. Wolfgang senses that sometimes fists speak louder than words, and this looks like the perfect opening. Yet he gave Yaren a firm promise that he would never hurt humans. At the time, he did not understand why she insisted, but looking at this jerk, her warning makes sense. Wolfgang realizes this modern era is completely different from his own. Nowadays, hunters are the sole reason humanity survives. On top of that, information networks and surveillance are far more advanced than in past eras. Society hands down brutal punishment to anyone who attacks fellow humans, unless they have enough cash to buy off the law. Regardless, Wolfgang knows tracking down Devil House gets way harder if he assaults anyone. He keeps his mouth shut, only for this grumpy old boss to bark that this is not a movie set, ordering him to swap gear. He demands Wolfgang wear a hazmat suit suited for a slime dungeon. The guy adds his weapon is useless today, forcing Wolfgang to leave it. Then he barks at Wolfgang to go wash up and change clothes. But a true beast never cares about public indecency charges. So Wolfgang strips down on the spot, exposing his massive physique. It reveals the one weapon this rude old foreman can never take away. Wolfgang casually asks the old man for directions to the nearest stream. Soon, the grumpy driver hauls Wolfgang and another hunter in his truck. Wolfgang rides in the back because a massive warrior cannot squeeze inside. He orders the yawning kid to stop whining about the drive and count his blessings for this gig. Getting into a B-rank dungeon as an F-rank is pure luck. But the kid is not buying it, knowing it is B-rank in name only. Their job is just cleaning up dead slime corpses for quick cash. He only joined to scrape together fee money for the hunter promotion exam. The foreman scoffs, doubting the kid has the skills to pass anything. Still, it offers a zero-risk way to pocket some easy money. The bosses know it too, which is why they keep slashing wages. Fed up with the constant whining, the foreman tells him to stay silent. The driver, named Foreman, finally pulls up to their assigned dungeon destination. Waiting there is Agent Kim Jun-won, overseeing the operation. He showed up specifically because this marks Wolfgang's very first assignment. Foreman has zero performance feedback, yet since they have not gone inside. Wolfgang steps forward to greet Jun-won, wearing a sloppy gardener outfit, looking like he got caught red-handed and had to dress in a rush. Wolfgang explains the foreman forced the wardrobe change, but he does not mind. It gives him complete freedom to move around during combat. The agent questions Foreman about sending him in without proper hazard protection. Foreman retorts that standard hazmat suits are not built for giant Vikings. This makeshift outfit was the only thing in their storage that barely fit him. A gas mask will suffice as long as he avoids touching slime residue. Foreman orders the low-rank hunters to move out and enter immediately. He wants this run cleared fast so he can move to the next site. He tells Jun-won to hunt down a larger suit during floor 1. Jun-won worries that a simple gas mask offers zero real protection. Yet the dungeon supervisor assures them floor 1 only contains basic slimes. The second floor is where danger spikes, so Jun-won rushes to find gear. Gang strictly warning him not to step onto the second floor before he returns. The foreman explains to the F-rank hunters that their only real threat on the first floor is toxic gas. Wolfgang immediately asks if monster corpses are plentiful down there and how many containers they actually brought. Once inside the dungeon, the worker asks Wolfgang if he can really handle hauling those massive crates all by himself. Empty containers weigh 10 kilograms alone, and loaded up they hit 30 kilograms each. That is 30 kilograms of dead weight per crate, but Wolfgang is completely unfazed by the heavy load. His only complaint is that their awkward shape limits how many jars he can carry at once. His partner asks Wolfgang if he knows anything about slimes. After all, everyone knows these bottom-tier monsters are harmless. Nobody ever worries about low-level slimes unless they happen to carry a name like Tempest. The guy is just trying to teach Wolfgang on his very first dungeon raid. Soon enough, they spot a dead monster, while a living slime stays. Soft and squishy, dead slime remains turn rock solid. He quickly warns Wolfgang not to touch the residue with bare skin, but the beastly warrior simply remarks that the venom feels dangerously potent. As he casually picks one up, the panicked porter smacks it away, fearing the acid will melt his flesh. But to his absolute shock, Wolfgang is completely unharmed. Totally fine, he casually crushes another slime stuck against the dungeon wall. Acid like this cannot even scratch his tough hide, deciding the protective gas mask is useless and looks totally goofy. He rips it straight off his face. Sure enough, this monstrous tank breathes in the poisoned air. Without coughing once, Wolfgang urges his terrified partner to move faster so they can rake in serious Cash today, the porter is stunned that Wolfgang heard him over howling cavern winds. How insane are his senses? But after walking for a while, the porter grows confused because they have not loaded a single crate yet. Usually, scavengers easily fill 2 jars after clearing this far. At this rate, they will end up losing money today, so Wolfgang suggests heading down a floor, promising he will personally fill every single container they brought. The young porter, carrying only 1 crate on his back, frantically argues back that the second floor is deadly for low F-rankers, and it is even worse for Wolfgang, since he is not wearing a protective hazmat suit. Even so, Wolfgang adamantly insists they head straight to the lower level. A faint rumble rising from deep below has caught his full attention. His instincts pick up the dark presence of a demonic entity. Meanwhile, Jaren grows increasingly anxious because Wolfgang's phone is switched completely off. She brushes past an agent on the phone, complaining that even the Hunter Association lacks oversized, giant-sized protective suits. It takes a full week to manufacture custom gear, meaning scavengers must stay on floor 1 today. As fate would have it, the man on the call is Agent Jin. He abruptly ends the conversation to return toward the slime dungeon, only to be ambushed by a shady assassin. Meanwhile, Jaren questions if Wolfgang entered that exact dungeon. She immediately chews out the manager for failing to give Wolfgang a phone, but the staff swears he handed over the smartphone and emergency debit card. The panicked manager has no clue why the recruit ignores her incoming calls. Furious, she orders the terrified manager to drive her straight to the raid site. Down in the depths, Wolfgang completely ignores every safety guideline and chucks writhing slimes right into the containers. Together, they pack every jar to the brim, securing enough bounty to fully fund his companion's Hunter advancement exam. The relieved porter suggests turning back, but turns round only to see Wolfgang already marching down toward the 3rd basement level. Basement level 3 is intensely dangerous and strictly restricted by the Holy Star Guild. Naturally, a savage beast never cares about petty human rules. The terrified porter sprints after him, chasing after Wolfie to halt his advance. Yet right now, both of them are standing directly before the Slime King, trapped inside a container. Every single slime on the lower and upper floors was spawned right here. That mana injector keeps the barrier running smoothly as slimes crawl out from narrow pipes, constantly making their way toward the surface where sunlight hits. The guy instantly pieces together the guild's passive income scheme for the Holy Star Guild. Suddenly, the air shifts and Wolfgang points straight at a massive pipe overhead. It dumps piles of trash right onto the trapped Slime King, feeding it nonstop to spawn endless monsters, literally turning garbage into pure gold. If only real-life junk paid like this, but ordinary life just does not work that way. Suddenly, a system prompt pops up, notifying Wolfgang that an unknown language has been recognized. By now, the companion is already calling Wolfgang his master. He notices that the fleeing slimes are suddenly turning around and crawling back. Not only are they swarming back, they completely coat Wolfgang in sticky ooze. They wrap the protagonist in their jelly mass to establish communication. They beg him to end their endless suffering. Wolfgang agrees to help, provided they answer a question first. He asks about Devil House, but they know absolutely nothing. The creature then releases Wolfgang, dissolving most of his gardener suit in the process. Meanwhile, the sidekick checks to see if Wolfgang is fine. Wolfgang explains what the creature begged for. His buddy takes a pragmatic stance, arguing that 2 F-rank hunters cannot tackle a B-rank dungeon, but Wolfie could not care less. He is only focused on seeing what happens when he smashes the container open. There are countless reasons not to do this. Putting their low ranks aside, this setup is private property claimed by the Holy Star Guild. While the companion tries desperately to talk sense into him, he realizes an apex predator does not care about trespassing or smashing someone else's property. In fact, the glass container is already splintering. The only way to block Wolfgang is by shielding that tank with his own body, yet Wolfie tells him to back off since he made a promise. Besides, it is already too late to argue. The companion glances back and realizes the entire structure is on the verge of shattering. Swarms of slimes are crowding the glass, prompting Wolfgang to shove his partner aside, declaring that he will take care of it. The man refuses to abandon him, but unfortunately, Wolfie leaves no room for debate, forcing him to sprint away while praying Wolfgang follows close behind, yet the older mentor tells him to quit worrying pointlessly. Meanwhile, Wolfie holds his ground as the barrier shatters completely. Outside, Junhan Yaren pull up near the dungeon gate, questioning the manager about the safety of the two F-rank hunters. The manager claims total ignorance, stating only that they should have returned already. Right then, violent tremors rock the entire area. With terrifying force, the men brush it off, assuming it is just a routine mini earthquake, yet Yaren senses something far more dangerous underneath. The shaking quickly dies down, prompting the manager to step away and notify guild superiors so backup can inspect the dungeon and rescue the hunters if they are trapped. Yaren offers to head inside alongside Jun Han into the dungeon, provided there is an extra gas mask. Deep within the cavern, the Slime King asks Wolfgang why he has not finished the job, but Wolfie explains that he held back on purpose, allowing the Monster King one final look at the outside world. For once, a final moment deserves some peace, right? The dungeon is about to collapse, so he grabs Wolfgang by the waist to drag him outside. The Slime King honestly just wanted to feel those rock-hard abs before dying. Either way, Wolfgang bolts straight toward the exit, dragging the massive Slime King behind him. That other guy is still stuck inside, totally terrified seeing the slime monster on his tail. He tosses his containers aside and books it. He finally reaches the doorway, but right before making it out, a beast catches him, not the slime boss, but this jacked, bald menace instead. He grabs the worker and hurls him outside the dungeon gate, right behind him. Wolfgang and the giant Slime King burst into the open air. Everyone outside, including Yaren, freezes up in utter confusion at the bizarre spectacle. The guy asks Wolfgang why he has not killed the boss yet, so Wolfgang explains that someone trapped in the dark for so long deserves some sunshine before passing on. He tells the guy to hold out his hand and passes over the Slime King's core. The Slime King disappears once this core shatters, and a solid chunk of that power transfers straight to whoever crushes it. Wolfgang does not need any of this power, so he gives it to this stranger, who has not even shared his name yet. As a token of thanks, he might not be noble, but as a true barbarian he always settles his debts. The Slime King thanks Wolfgang for showing him such a wonderful view before his end. Wolfgang then calls for Yaren and bounds toward her like an eager puppy, ready for mommy to take him home after a long day. Meanwhile, the site manager is screaming into his phone for transport trucks, demanding at least 50 vehicles. Yaren steps up and asks if she can take Wolfgang away from here. The managers will be tied up for hours, so they give her the green light. Wolfgang seems oddly rushed, prompting Yaren to ask if he was responsible for this crazy mess. A fierce warrior never sweats the small details, so he tells a blatant lie. Spending the last 2 days with him taught Yaren that this bald powerhouse is full of it. Either way, they have to move, because someone is waiting on Wolfgang. The barbarian wonders if Yaren already found the devil's base and is leading him there. Night falls and Jinan remains outside the dungeon gate. The foreman wonders why he has not packed up yet, especially since he does not have a ride. He answers that he cannot leave until the area is cleared. The payment settlement will not finish on schedule. They both know the harsh reality of corporate grind, leaving no other choice. Meanwhile, the bald manager is shouting over the phone, urgently reporting that 150 tons, not kilograms, but tons of raw slime were harvested. That equals over 100 million burgers. The boss lady sharply asks Kang Jun-mo if he would just blindly transfer 1.4 billion won without checking. This fierce team leader, Kang In, refuses to believe 2 F-rank hunters harvested all of that. She berates her brother for failing to lock down the dungeon or investigate a bizarre situation. She orders him to head back inside and inspect everything himself. Jun-mo definitely resents how his sister constantly bosses him around. You have to feel for the guy. Imagine clocking overtime only for your boss to scream and send you into a dangerous dungeon. Jun-mo sighs and tells Jin Woo-won that they will have to wait a while longer before heading home to sleep. Meanwhile, Wolfgang discovers this glorious modern invention known as a shower. Indoor running water blows his mind. He genuinely wonders what kind of wizardry physics equation created this. He asks Yaren how the whole mechanism works, but she just tells him to shut up and hurry out after washing up. There is no time to study plumbing physics when someone is waiting outside. It might not be someone famous, but this meeting is still pretty important. She also grabs the biggest clothes available, borrowed from an oversized gym bro. Yet even that bulky outfit ends up looking way too tight on him. Sure, the artist could draw baggy pants, but why hide those shredded abs? The man they're visiting heads the elite archaeological hunter unit. Since they are running late, Wolfgang just rolls with the tight outfit. He really does not care. All that matters right now is grabbing free food. They step into the office of Dr. Choi Mong-jun, a notable veteran. He operates as a B-rank hunter known for unearthing ancient relics. Being his usual blunt self, Wolfgang asks where Choi's clan actually lives. Yarin quickly clarifies that archaeology is an academic field, not a barbarian tribe. It is basically historical research, boring enough to put insomniacs straight to sleep. Scholars dig up ancient ruins, antique weapons, and remnants of forgotten civilizations. Wolfgang finds that mildly interesting, but an even bigger priority is eating dinner. Yarin graciously orders a massive pile of crispy fried chicken for the guy. Wolfgang devours it with absolute joy, looking like a superstar athlete holding a trophy. He wipes his mouth and asks the good doctor why they were called here. Dr. Choi has a few burning questions, which Wolfgang agrees to answer. First, how does a barbarian speak fluent Korean like a complete native? Wolfgang reveals the divine language blessing gifted to him by the angels. He understands every dialect on Earth. Dr. Choi, however, looks totally confused. Unfamiliar with real angels, Choi wonders if he means some kind of constellation. Yarin explains the concept, but Wolfgang scoffs and sets the record straight. He is not talking about petty spirits. Angels possess raw power against demons. And Wolfgang forged a direct blood pact with them back in his world. The doctor listens as the story pivots into a familiar backstory recap. Let's break it down together. Angels fought a brutal war alongside the barbarian clans. Tragically, Wolfgang's entire clan was massacred during that vicious conflict. Driven by vengeance, he hunted down the demons alone, slaughtering almost everyone. Only the final demon survived, petrifying Wolfgang in stone while rebuilding its evil army. That monster spawned millions more. Yarin gently reaches out and grabs Wolfgang's hand, comforting him with words of reassurance that he will get his payback. Dr. Choi apologizes for digging up painful memories, but still needs another favor. Because Wolfgang surfaced as an excavated relic, his authenticity must be verified officially. The doctor brings out a sacred statue crafted by his patron Constellation. Known as the martial artist of Rough Buddha, a legendary historical figure. This spirit once led warrior monks against invaders during the Goryeo dynasty. Its divine gaze can verify the truth. Wolfgang is ready to decline. But since Yarin's career rating relies heavily on this appraisal, he agrees. After all, having this veteran doctor as an ally will pay off later. Locating Devil House, with his approval, Doc summons the bald legend without hesitation. The Constellation recognizes the legendary barbarian hero right away, declaring that he ended that chaotic age. The Constellation drops to its knees, paying deep respect to the war hero, but Wolfgang brushes off the gratitude. Because he sees it as just half a win, he refuses to stop until every demon is wiped out completely. Doc suddenly runs out of mana, making the Constellation vanish. Either way, the mission succeeded, since his true identity was verified. Meanwhile, Junmo reaches basement 3 of the dungeon, discovering that they're passive. Income stream is totally ruined. Business was going so smoothly for them. Until that orange fish showed up, dragging everyone into absolute misery. Junmo reports the whole mess to his sister, but she assumes it is just another stupid sibling joke, but he is dead serious. She is stunned, not even an A ranker like or could shadow that container. Besides, MU agency has no secret S rankers capable of pulling that off under their noses. Junmo confirms that both hunters who walked in were mere F rankers. One was a total rookie who, aside from his late wife, had never stepped foot in any dungeon before. He tells Mayan the rookie only received his license yesterday. Mayan immediately senses that this newcomer is suspicious, ordering Junmo to tail the guy and dig up intel on him immediately. When Junmo asks what she plans next, she talks about suing MU agency for the destruction while exposing the culprit to lock down evidence. Junmo could not care less about lawsuits. He just wants his share of that 1.4 billion won. Since he has waited hours, his sister screams at him and hangs up on the spot. Meanwhile, Wolfgang hits the shopping mall with his mommy, figured to pick up fresh clothes, since he has clearly outgrown all his old gear. While they wait for the clerk to bring out gorilla-sized shoes, Wolfgang politely asks Yarin how to operate the phone in his massive hand. Yarin finally realizes why her calls never connected. this muscle-bound brute with abs for brains. Actually mistook a debit card for an actual smartphone. She asks if he received anything else with it. Wolfgang explains that he did get some card-shaped item. But since it looked bigger than his tiny plastic phone, he left it behind. Yaren patiently clarifies that the card is the actual phone, and what he holds is just a bank card, but honestly, how was this giant warrior ever supposed to know modern tech without anyone explaining it? Yaren chuckles at the pure innocence. From a warlord who has slaughtered more foes than she could ever count, she promises to give him a full tutorial once their shopping spree wraps up. The store clerk returns with giant custom footwear, originally crafted for a dinosaur-sized customer. As Wolfgang tries them on, a shady guy in a street thug outfit strolls past. Clutching a photo of Wolfgang, up next is picking out new clothes. Yaren tries dressing our barbarian like a dapper mobster, but she worries that every single grandmother in town might abandon their husbands just to chase Wolfgang, so she removes the stylish hat. The rest of the outfit stays, looking surprisingly sharp. Especially since nothing else fits his frame, she tells Wolfie he should dress like this. From now on, being an obedient powerhouse, Wolfie gladly agrees to her fashion choices. She notes this is normal modern attire, though Wolfie still fails to grasp why anyone needs so many layers when a simple leaf covers all the essentials. Just a bit is plenty. In fact, even a quarter of a leaf does the trick nowadays. Yaren heads for the restroom, leaving an opening for a Tamu Yakuza thug and his partner. The guy in the hoodie thinks he looks intimidating, jumping at the chance to strike. They plan to distract Wolfgang and jump him. Meanwhile, Wolfgang stands there completely puzzled. He wonders why there are two doors when back in his day, only women had private stalls. Men could go anywhere. Just then, the masked guy lunges for the shopping bags. He tries distracting Wolfgang to set up his buddy, but his plan fails immediately. Any coolness he thought he had vanishes instantly. Next up, the older Yakuza steps forward. Wolfgang effortlessly grabs him by the skull. In less than 2 seconds, it is over. The clueless dude realizes they messed with a monster whose bare hands dwarf their skulls. Still, the Yakuza thug did not put on a fresh tie just to surrender easily. He tries acting tough, only to find himself on the verge of being crushed. He feels totally scammed after being told their target was only an F-rank hunter. Look, they had his photo and should have known what nightmare was waiting for them. Wolfgang might look like a Peaky Blinder, ready to show them why nobody crosses him. He bluntly demands to know if the Sunshin Guild sent them after him. Meanwhile, Yaren is inside thinking about how surprisingly high-maintenance Wolfgang is. She hopes he adapts to this modern world soon, wondering what is taking him so long. She knows he is probably baffled by public restrooms, but she cannot guide him inside. Even if she wanted to, walking into the men's room with him is out of the question. Wolfgang releases the Tamuza thug, warning him to tell his boss to never try this again. If they do, Wolfgang promises to annihilate their entire crew. Yaren returns and they move on. They head out to grab a meal before heading back to her office for phone lessons. She plans to teach him how to use a phone, while Wolfgang asks what they are eating. Yaren tells him he can pick whatever he likes, promising him a free feast. After all, Dr. Cho's credit card is footing the bill. Meanwhile, inside a nearby cafe, a sharply dressed man informs Jinwan that Sunshin Guild filed a 6 billion won lawsuit. They claim massive damages for breaching the slime dungeon and defeating the king. Jinwan knows about the dungeon breach, but finding themselves sued seems completely ridiculous. After all, the raid was B-rank, and they only sent 2 low F-rank hunters. The suited man explains that Sunshin claims the slime corpse rightfully belongs to them. Instead of paying the 1.4 billion won they owe, they are playing dirty. They are just trying to squeeze out every bit of profit they can manage. Before taking action, the wealthy-looking associate turns and asks Jinwan a crucial question. He asks if he is 100% sure both hunters were merely F-rankers. Jinwan reassures him not to worry, insisting both were definitely bottom-tier F-rankers. Having been a hunter himself, Jinwan knows exactly how these shady games work. The gray-suited man pulls out the video evidence submitted by the Sunshin Guild. The footage shows earlier today, where Wolfgang completely mopped the floor with both attackers. The masked attacker was Yun Ho Hong, an E-rank hunter, while his partner was a D-rank. His name was Jiang Min, a recognized D-rank combatant in the Tamuza syndicate. Despite launching an ambush, they were the ones who got completely demolished in seconds. A fighter like that cannot possibly be an F-ranker, raising serious questions about the agency. Sunshin suspects the Mu agency pulled a trick by disguising a high-tier powerhouse. First, they have not paid a single dime yet, and second, things are getting messier. This sharp-suited suit doubts Junwon once again, getting up to head right over to Sunshin and give them a piece of his mind. Truth is, he just wants to make sure Junwon keeps his hands clean. There is no way they will ever work with Sunshin again anyway, so they might as well sue them to recover that 1.4 billion won they rightfully deserve. Junwon insists that his manager squeeze every single dime out of them before leaving to recruit a rookie hunter over in Cheongdam. Even inside the taxi, Junwon fumes with absolute rage at these corporate sharks who rip people off. At this rate, he will never even afford his own ride. Meanwhile, Junwon reviews the dungeon footage very carefully, spotting something bizarre where Dan Tamusa attempted to break completely free, using a constellation's divine power, yet Wolfgang did not even flinch. A warrior untouched by the constellations is something the world has never seen before. A sudden plan sparks in his mind, testing Wolfgang to see if he is truly the real deal. A few days pass and Wolfgang rocks his sharp modern outfit while still hauling around both massive swords. He finally grasps the concept of traffic signals, assuming the local chieftain must be ridiculously strict to control exactly when citizens can cross the street. Poor guy does not even know about reckless delivery drivers, yet who ignore every single traffic rule. Following the exact directions foreman gave him, Wolfgang pushes forward through the city. He soon arrives at the rendezvous spot where Yaren is already waiting. After making sure he brought everything requested, the two head straight inside the archaeology department to meet Dr. Chu. Stepping into the office, the professor apologizes for dragging him all the way over, guiding them into the storage vault. The doctor struggles to keep his wandering hands off Wolfgang's legendary ancient blade. Wolfgang glances over, asking Yaren what is wrong with him, so she explains that scholars naturally lose their minds seeing a living ancient warrior alongside historic relics, as long as boundaries stay intact. Wolfgang does not mind, handing over the legendary Fenrir wolf pelt packed inside his travel bag. Once inside the vault, the doctor introduces Choi Young and Kang Jiho to Wolfgang. Jiho stands stunned seeing how massive the former statue looks in person. As an A-rank archaeologist, she gets thrilled meeting a living piece of history, and Wolfgang certainly does not complain. Standing right behind her is Jungyun, her lucky assistant, looking completely thrilled with his job surrounded by stunning women. Still, Jungyun turns out to be far more fascinated by the colossal blade Wolfgang carries on his back, a weapon passed down through generations to the wolf tribe's chieftain. Right at that moment, Jiho gets a brilliant idea while struggling to identify an unknown dungeon relic. Perhaps Wolfgang recognizes the artifact. Wolfgang simply notes how eccentric scholars can be in this strange new world. Jiho reveals an enormous war hammer, the very weapon recovered from the exact same cave where Wolfgang was first discovered. Every other relic found at the site was identified with ease, yet this oversized war hammer baffled all equipment. Wolfgang gently reaches out toward the steel, speaking of Jonas, son of Louise, who once guarded the village gates and bravely challenged Wolfgang for leadership of the wolf tribe. He stood as Wolfgang's dearest companion and greatest rival through countless battles. When war erupted, Jonas gave everything and met a glorious end on the battlefield. This legendary weapon belonged to Jonas. Following his tragic sacrifice, Wolfgang inherited the armament, carrying it across endless front lines. Wielding this weapon, he slaughtered tens of thousands of demons. Now, Wolfgang urgently seeks to hunt down the demon who struck Jonas down and avenge his fallen brother. Seeing the heavy gloom on Wolfgang's face, Yaren takes his hand, telling him that he no longer has to carry the heavy burden all by himself anymore. He has allies at his side who want to help. Wolfgang thanks her softly, while G apologizes for dredging up painful memories. In return, Wolfgang thanks her for tracking down the location of Jonas's weapon, asking if his own data helped their research. But before Jiho can finish answering him, Wolfgang spots the peculiar arrowhead and smashes the glass barrier to seize it. It is as though Wolfgang completely lost control upon seeing it there. The girls cannot fathom why Wolfgang is reacting so wildly. To understand what is happening, we need a quick flashback. This is the exact arrowhead that Devil House fired at him. Back in the office, Yaren guesses that the dried stain is actually Wolfgang's blood. She is completely right. Wolfgang can still sense the angel's holy energy along with the Foul, rancid magic of Devil House. Jiho finally understands why she failed to analyze it since demonic magic corrupted the relic. Even so, Yaren is scolding Wolfgang for endangering the team by recklessly tampering with the containment barrier. Wolfgang owns his mistake, admitting that he briefly lost his cool. Jiho overlooks it since the critical breakthrough made up for the chaos. She had already suspected something regarding the weapon, but the arrowhead was totally unexpected. She initially took it for an ordinary high-tier monster drop, but it turned out far more significant. They would never have struggled this long if they simply had a skilled devil hunter assigned to their specialized research team. Someone who could easily distinguish dark demonic magic from divine holy energy. Still, how could Wolfgang tell them apart when an A-rank hunter was totally clueless? Wolfgang explains that he possesses no formal technique for identifying magic. Having clashed with countless demons, his battle instincts recognize it naturally. G desperately needs a devil hunter to advance her work, but despite countless official requests, the Hunter Association has not assigned anyone. Doc avoids drawing any unwanted attention and keeps quiet. Right then, another bright idea strikes Jiho. She boldly proposes that Wolfgang become a registered devil hunter himself. She lays out her reasoning, recalling when Doc approached her days ago to investigate the demon named Devil House in exchange for Wolfgang visiting her lab. As an A-rank hunter, she does enjoy broader classified database clearance. Yet archaeology specialists can only inspect files on uncovered artifacts. When it comes to demon intel, however, official devil hunters receive unrivaled access, while it stands among the rarest combat classes in the world. Wolfgang's raw combat experience makes passing a breeze. Wolfgang is definitely interested and asks what the requirements are. Jiho reveals that he merely needs to pass the hunter promotion exam, but Yaren abruptly interrupts her, pointing out that all advancement tests are temporarily frozen. Doc confirms the rumors, adding that the legendary spear was heavily damaged a few days ago in one of the tests are paused until they manage to track down another usable relic. Doc wonders what could wreck an artifact like that. Either way, Jiho and Yaren look crushed since getting certified as a devil hunter seems impossible. Right then, that random background guy chimes in with another option. There is still a route to grab that hunter license by enrolling in an academy. It is unconventional, but if Wolfie checks all the right boxes and clears the exams, he gets certified through an approved academy. Doc confirms he has seen this exact loophole work before too. Juhai, easily the most grounded person in the room, points out that most students enrolled there are only in their 20s. She then curiously asks Wolfie how old he was before getting turned to stone. A predator never worries about age, since numbers mean nothing to him. Classic mentality. Either way, Wolfie drops his age with unmatched main character energy. He says the 4 seasons have passed 33 times since he was born. To Juhai's surprise, Wolfie is actually younger than her, making her the older one at 36. She jokes about being his big sister. Wolfgang takes it dead seriously, honoring the title of this strange tribe, and calls her Juhai Nuna with a completely straight face, pure accidental comedy. Meanwhile, Junin is feeding the same old parking lot scam script to another clueless rookie hunter they managed to rope in today. With some free time on his hands, he recalls the foreman mentioning he would pick up the newcomer who showed up yesterday, walking by Wolfie's room. He suspects the guy definitely is not an F-rank hunter. He wants to test his strength to decide if he should eliminate him. Trading just one strike should tell him everything. Man is walking into trouble, straight toward his doom. Meanwhile, Wolfie and Yaren discuss her writing a recommendation letter for him, since the agency holds an academy partnership. This means Wolfie's active hunter duties can be put on hold while attending classes. If he dislikes extending his contract later, he can jump ship to Juhai's guild once he finishes school. She will cover the buyout penalty herself, completely backing him up. Wolfie wants 0 headaches, gladly passing off all administrative hassle, since her guild seems far better equipped to locate the Devil House. The only real hurdle left is scraping together the steep academy tuition fee. Wolfie has quickly learned just how brutal this modern economy is. Nobody moves a single muscle in this world without cash up front. Just wait until you get famous and distant relatives come crawling out with ridiculous stories demanding a payout for some made-up family connection. chasing after your pockets for every dime of child support they can claim. Jin steps in, offering to cover the entire enrollment fee right away. In exchange for a small favor, he wants Wolfgang to hit a target. An actual violent strike. Wolfgang warns him that arrogance will cost him dearly. Wolfgang has no desire to take a life over simple tuition cash. Junin replies that despite his worn-out appearance and dead eyes, he is still a trained C-rank combatant who can handle himself in a brawl. A tank hunter who would not drop from a single blow, Yarin looks stunned. She never expected this corporate desk jockey to actually pack real power. Junwon can tell neither of them buys his story, so he doubles down once again. He brags that with his constellation's unique trait, even a rankers fall easily. Yarin knows it sounds like total nonsense, yet his wild confidence shakes her logic. If a hidden C-rank hunter is laying low, his power might run deeper. That item in his grip has to be the sacred relic of his patron. She immediately warns Wolfgang about the extreme danger of facing a divine relic. But our barbarian has already made up his mind. A warrior never backs down. He takes her warning as a green light. A relic user should take a punch. Besides, Wolfgang genuinely wants to find out what this artifact can actually do. He tells Yarin to step back and orders Junwon to bring out his constellation. Junwon's patron is the sacred royal medallion, carrying a truly bizarre secret. Its special trait lets the divine spirit possess the contractor's body directly. It is ridiculously rare. Now, Junwon looks like some overly expensive anime assassin. You know, the type who poses for 2 panels before getting deleted by the protagonist. If this is the master of the royal medallion, it must be Park Mansu. The possessed body casts a spell, instantly spawning dozens of glowing copies. They surround Wolfgang in a tight circle. He casually asks if he must hit them all. Mansu, piloting the vessel, tells him to ignore all the surrounding illusions. They exist solely to channel holy energy for the impending judgment strike. This constellation hits harder depending entirely on how corrupt or wicked the target is. To innocent people, these clones deal 0 damage and pose no real threat. Wolfgang gets the message. He steps forward and casually throws a single punch. Just a light tap, and Mansu hits the floor while the illusions vanish completely. By the time Yarin blinks, the poor guy is flat on his back, staring upward. He is basically admiring the sunset. Suddenly, our duo worries they just caught a body. They genuinely wonder if they just reduced the agency's employee count by 1. Luckily, the dude is alive, so Yarin will not lose her kid's tuition sponsor. She immediately reminds him of their bet and demands he show up on time Monday morning. 9 a.m. sharp at the Academy's hell stairs. A lion never checks on its prey. So Wolfgang just strolls away with Yarin, leaving the broken man behind. Junwon slowly sits up, now fully convinced Wolfgang is not an evil guy. 0 dark energy registered, meaning this warrior is an absolute diamond in the rough. Still, he cannot believe Wolfgang dropped a possessed vessel with just 1 bare fist. Who on earth is this guy? A walking constellation, or something even beyond that? The scene cuts over to Jinwoo, who is currently running a solo rank test. Checking a score of 227 brings relief that his training actually worked. A few days later, Junwon, Yarin, and Wolfgang arrive at the academy grounds. They begin trudging up the brutal hell stairs for Wolfgang's upcoming enrollment. Yarin yells at Junwon to speed up, suspecting he is lagging behind on purpose. She assumes he wants to dodge tuition, clueless about what years of sitting do. His knees are completely shot. To save face, he claims his body is still recovering. He blames the lingering strain from when his constellation took complete control. Inside the academy, the admissions officer tells Yarin that she got extremely lucky today. The application deadline was set for last week, but someone wrecked the promotion exam artifact of Adidas, forcing them to push back the admission deadline by an entire week. Ironically, that culprit was sitting right in front of him, but he had no idea. Since Wolfie already held a valid license, they did not need an entrance exam. Academy tests alone were enough to bump a hunter from F rank to D rank. Yarin was thrilled Wolfie could enroll in the academy, all because the artifact he broke forced his enrollment in the first place, a strange loop of luck caused by his own destruction. Yarin asked whether the academy held the authority to issue a devil hunter license directly. The admissions officer confirmed that Professor Kimong, the head of the department, indeed possessed that exact power. Luckily, he was Also the homeroom teacher for F-rankers, meaning they would meet him shortly. Because paperwork would take a little time to process, the clerk asked the student to head toward the classroom, while the student's father, Wolfgang, waited behind. Once the documents cleared, they could settle the tuition fees. Right then, an embarrassed Yaren revealed that the old man was actually the student. The staff member apologized immediately for overlooking that the older man might have awakened late in life. Before she could explain, he asked who was handling the payment. Just then, that walking corpse of a man, Mr. Jin, finally dragged his exhausted bones up the stairs. So Yaren pointed straight at him, heading toward the classroom. The staffer asked Wolfie about his preferred weapon, and Wolfie mentioned his long sword. Every student had to take specialized combat courses regardless of rank, requiring a proper weapon. Yaren had not realized this and had already given it to Jiho for research. Wolfie shrugged it off, claiming it was no problem, since he could summon it whenever needed. Before Yaren could question him, a blur zoomed right past them, a speedy figure who was actually an elderly man named Kimong. The staff member quickly flagged him down and asked him to guide the new F-rank applicant over to his classroom, meaning the professor now oversaw 2 Devil Hunter students this semester. Since Yaren and Wolfie were splitting up here, she asked if he would be all right and told him to call if trouble started, having already taught him phone basics. She warned him to behave properly, show respect to his instructor, and avoid picking fights with classmates. After the nagging, Wolfie casually walked away, leaving Yaren full of worry. Jinwan teased that it was typical for a mother sending her young boy off to basic military service. She snapped at his joke, but the admissions clerk quickly redirected her irritation by asking Wolfie's 2 supposed children to follow him to pay the tuition. Down the hall, they spotted a display board honoring the top-ranked graduate from every past class. Jinwan belonged to the 10th batch, where the top student was Jin Sung. Jinwan took second place, purely because his stamina fell short against Jin Sung, just like we saw on the stairs. Yaren surely recognized the name, a famous celestial contractor from one of the nation's wealthiest conglomerates. Jinwan noted that the heir had plenty of family wealth, yet chose the hunter path anyway. An elite hunter and total beast. Yaren finally recalls him, the guy who secured constellation packs for his entire family. Jinwan chimes in that it means nothing since he never won his father's approval anyway. Talk about deep daddy issues. Generational wealth always brings family trauma. His clan obsessively pushed their hunter dreams straight onto Jianong. What started out as strict training quickly turned deeply unsettling. Honestly, Jinwan knows way too much personal gossip about someone else's household. Right on cue, the admissions officer returns. Jinan is putting Wolfie forward for an industry academic scholarship. Any recruit backed by the Mu agency gets their entrance fee and entire first semester's tuition completely wiped clean. Yaren finally clicks on why this unk offered to cover the bill. Obviously, Jun Huan was never paying out of pocket. If he were rich, he would not be ride-sharing daily. Turns out they have to sign extra paperwork, so the official leads him inside. Jun Huan pulls some emotional manipulation, begging Yaren to wait and not ditch him. She cannot just leave a rideless dude stranded outside the building all alone. Yaren appreciates his help, but deep down, she still finds him ridiculously annoying. Meanwhile, she still wonders where the legendary Jianong vanished to. He completely dropped off the radar recently. Step inside the office, and Jun Huan spots another applicant waiting. The staff member explains the stranger is also registering. Jun Huan sits nearby, racking his brain because that face looks oddly familiar. The second he gets a better look, his jaw drops in pure shock. Sitting right in front of him is none other than Jianong himself. Outside, Yaren keeps wondering where that prodigy disappeared to, having never met him in person, yet sensing something weirdly familiar about his name. Meanwhile, that beefy guy Jin Woo from the promotion exams is also hanging around. He dreads walking into Professor Kim Seunch's office, but he has no real choice. While he stands outside whining, this older guy creeps right up behind him, casually swiping 20 gallons worth of protein tubs right off him, shaken to his core. He demands to know who this old dude is, only to realize he is staring at his own master. Turns out Jin Woo is the other candidate enrolled in the Devil Hunter track. Jin Woo thinks Devil Hunters are lame since they miss out on flashy, big-budget anime showdowns. Instead, their entire job reminds him of the United Nations, just observing from afar. All they ever get to do is watch. Their absolute most aggressive move is probably dropping an angry tweet online. The professor immediately steps in to correct that take. Tracking dangerous fiends is their main goal, but combat is definitely not off limits. In reality, devil hunters are usually the very first fighters to clash head-on with demonic threats. Right at that moment, Jin-Woo catches sight of the guy who ruined his exam and completely loses his mind. He charges Wolfie at full speed, screaming bloody murder about his ruined future, but Wolfie, rocking that cute kitty backpack, sidesteps effortlessly, catches his fist, grabs him around the waist, and slams him upside down against the hard wall. Wolfie stays totally chill, calmly asking if the Sunshin Guild sent him to attack. Jin-Woo gets even more furious that Wolfie does not even recognize his face. Picture getting your life ruined, instantly forgotten, and then pinned in an awkward inverted lock. The professor has to jump in, casting a spell to pry the two apart. Pulvin glares right at the professor, demanding to know what he thinks he is doing. Even the professor's raw mana could not easily shake Wolfie off his target. The teacher warns that brawling on campus brings immediate expulsion, and nobody wants that. Losing the two students assigned to him after waiting so long, he offers another option: a supervised duel with himself as referee to settle their bitter past. Grudge, meanwhile, Yarn is still waiting on the hell stairs for Junwan, while Junwan is caught up reliving old memories with his longtime rival, Jin Sung. Keeps up that cold, secretive wall, refusing to share a single thing. He has always been this stubborn. Junwan shifts gears and asks if he is still chasing that dark power, warning him to quit before it ruins him. That is the only advice he offers as an old friend, but Jin Sung snaps back, claiming Junwan should ditch that useless horse tally he barely even knows how to trigger. He makes a point, but Junwan is definitely not backing down. He needs this holy relic because it is the only weapon capable of standing up to a demon contractor. Jin Sung quickly realizes he still cannot stand him. Running into each other was a terrible idea, and crossing paths again is completely out. They both know they must avoid each other from here on out. With that, he storms off, leaving Yarn completely intrigued by the mysterious rival who just vanished. Appearing from thin air, meanwhile, Wolfgang is visibly frustrated with the professor for limiting their duel to just a fraction of their true power. Their teacher explains that both Wolfgang and Jin-Woo need this constraint if they want to become demon hunters who detect evil through subtle energy control. Without masterfully reading constellation traces, they stand no chance in battle. Failing this basic step means they will never cut it as demon hunters. This duel serves as a test. Wolfgang asks what happens without constellation power. The professor bluntly replies that they would have to pack up and transfer. Jin-Woo openly mocks Wolfgang for enrolling without even knowing the basic rules. Then comes question 2, is constellation energy the sole permissible weapon? The instructor allows alternative techniques as long as they avoid direct physical strikes. Minor injuries might happen, but the goal is keeping actual damage to a minimum. Jin-Woo has no questions at all. He is thrilled to finally crush him. He eagerly seizes this chance to humiliate his opponent, channeling constellation power. Jin-Woo gathers blazing energy spheres and hurls them violently toward Wolfgang. The initial fireball strikes right at Wolfgang's boots as an intimidating warning shot. Wolfgang fumes over his scorched clothes, while Jin-Woo mocks him without mercy. He taunts that he might show mercy if Wolfgang crawls and begs on all fours. Wolfgang tries reasoning with him, but the arrogant fool refuses to listen at all. So Wolfgang switches tactics, giving Jin-Woo 1 full minute of free attacks. Meanwhile, Yarn and Jin wrap up their paperwork and start heading back together. Yarn asks what really went down between him and Jin Sung back there. The tension felt bizarre, almost like bitter exes, but Jin Wan explains everything. They were fiercest rivals, pushing each other to evolve through intense, chaotic competition. Yet Yarn still finds it odd that bad blood lingers so heavily today. Apparently, time does not have a 100% success rate at healing. Deep down, Yarn senses they never truly hated one another. Jin Sung simply sucks at communicating, making any real reunion with his former friend practically impossible. Back at the duel, Jin-Woo gets 60 seconds to unleash his full arsenal. Instead of wasting those 60 precious seconds holding back, Jin goes all in. Jin-Woo spams attack after attack, going way too far in the professor's eyes. But Jin-Woo still despises Wolfgang for ruining his sacred constellation contract. Wolfgang Clearly pulled a cheap trick, the professor steps in to stop him, desperate for damage control while praying Wolfgang survived the brutal onslaught. Meanwhile, the victim himself is thoroughly disappointed with the pathetic durability of his clothes. How did such weak strikes turn them to ash? Since he was taught proper decency, he casually tears open a portal to that young guy and swipes his outfit. He even borrows the Fenrir pelt. For a moment, before anyone can process what just occurred, the rift snaps shut. Wolfgang covers up his forbidden weapon with the stolen gear, tossing the beastly pelt aside, leaving Jinwoo utterly baffled by the strange display. All that bravado, yet Jinwoo lacks any real guts, Wolfgang then points out. An annoying detail that has bugged him, not those pumped-up muscles but the sinister tattoo inked on his arm. It is no ordinary mark but demonic power. Wolfgang blinks behind Jinwoo, and without throwing a single punch, he lets his overwhelming aura flare, instantly triggering a wild reaction from the ink. A monstrous three-headed beast tears right out of the skin. Wolfgang openly mocks it, asking why it left the underworld gates unattended like people gatekeeping a local diner. We flash back to the past. Jinwoo was strictly warned by his master that he would face severe consequences for wrecking that celestial pact. To restore his lost strength, he was ordered to bind with Cerberus. Jinwoo argued back, terrified that the demonic beast would demand a lethal toll. He knew he was nowhere near skilled enough to tame such a monstrous hellhound. He begged to refuse, but was told his entire existence would be wiped out. All that artificial muscle would vanish along with his deleted life. Now, Jinwoo is paralyzed with dread seeing Cerberus manifest, screaming for everyone to flee before the demon devours them. Wolfgang clamps a hand over his mouth instantly. He silences Jinwoo for a crucial reason, keeping him quiet before panic consumes him. The deeper Jinwoo's terror runs, the more ferocious Cerberus becomes. Furthermore, the fiend would drain Jinwoo's remaining lifespan as fuel. Wolfgang has seen countless lives ruined by vile demon pacts and refuses to watch another tragedy unfold. He firmly orders Jinwoo to control his breath and look straight into the beast's eyes. Jinwoo lacks the sheer willpower, so Wolfgang decides to teach him a harsh lesson. Leaning on demonic power never leads to true strength. Watching closely, the professor hangs back to witness how this bizarre spectacle unfolds. Suddenly, the pelt Wolfgang tossed earlier begins radiating an overwhelming, blood-curdling energy. Both the professor and Jinwoo tremble before the immense pressure surging from the fur. It shifts into a colossal spectral wolf greeting Wolfgang. Cerberus suffers 3 times the dread. With all 3 hound heads shivering in sheer panic, Wolfgang calmly greets his ancient companion Fenrir, checking if those legendary fangs grew dull. Cerberus is completely frozen in place, utterly failing to impress the mighty beast. Fenrir grumbles in disappointment, annoyed at being summoned for such a pathetic creature that has already surrendered its fighting spirit, but Wolfgang did not call him. For small prey, he summoned Fenrir to deliver a massive announcement. The great demon subjugation begins anew after 1,000 long years. Time passed, yet Wolfgang still seems chained to his past. Either way, he plans to head back, build up his power, and notify his allies that Wolfgang the warrior has returned, leaving Wolfie to handle this overgrown hound all alone. Fenrir vanishes on the spot, leaving Jinwoo completely stunned by a talking wolf. Meanwhile, that slowpoke is still creeping down those stairs after an absolute eternity. Yaren keeps screaming at Jinhan to hurry, having waited through 3 whole chapters already. Right then, an odd shape appears overhead. It is Wolfie's massive greatsword falling down. The blade finally reaches its master, and Wolfie gets the joke. It really is an antique, mostly because of how agonizingly slow it travels through the air. At least it lands before Jinhan reaches bottom. Without even grabbing it, he drops it straight onto Cerberus, instantly slicing off all 3 heads in a single strike. Back in his office, the professor notes that signing a demon contract is legal. In fact, devil hunters do it regularly to track down fiends. What genuinely puzzles the professor, though, is Jinwoo's famous elite hunter older brother. His sibling was a top prodigy of this era, while his father is a legendary martial artist and billionaire. So why would Jinwoo make a pact with a demon when he could afford holy relics? Jinwoo tries keeping quiet until his attorney arrives, but the professor cuts in. He lays it out plainly, either spill the truth or leave the academy. There is only one choice, because the professor must know what he faces. After all, binding yourself to a demon is always a dangerous, double-edged blade. That Cerberus contract alone cost Jinwoo half of his remaining natural lifespan. Even Wolfie is stunned, having never imagined things were that deadly serious. Jinwoo finally opens up, recounting the deep struggles within his renowned household. Their clan peaked back when Jinseong formed a bond with the barbarian constellation. They were already loaded with wealth and prestige from martial arts heritage. That powerful pact pushed them straight toward becoming Korea's #1 dynasty. They became nationwide celebrities, rising fast as the most influential powerhouse in the entire nation. His father was seen as a massive mogul, sitting on unbelievable mountains of cold cash. He might not boast crazy body counts like certain hunters, but money was endless. Still standing as a legendary martial master was always his ultimate ambition. The constellation's blessings even flowed down directly to Jinseong's own bloodline. Their father's dream was finally within reach, prompting non-stop clan celebrations. That is, until the family's disappointing second son triggered an absolute disaster. He means that disastrous promotion exam where the constellation voided every single contract. The divine patron wiped out every blessing across the entire clan. They blamed Wolfgang entirely, yet Wolfgang refuses to take any blame. The constellation punished him for acting arrogant while borrowing barbarian power. Even Wolfie never predicted the constellation would cut ties so suddenly. But that only proves the entity already doubted Jinwoo's haughty family. Jinwoo refuses to buy that excuse, defending his brother with fierce loyalty. Wolfie can criticize Jinwoo all he likes, but his older brother was pure genius. He was a generational talent, like Magnus in chess or Messi in football. An absolute peak titan among peers, leaving Jinwoo feeling like the true failure. Jinwoo blames himself entirely for the fallout, while Wolfie knows nothing about Jinseong. He keeps quiet, but he knows the raw power of the barbarian. Constellation was completely wasted. Talent was never the real issue, if his whole family wielded it like this, the barbarian constellation. Never suited them at all. Meanwhile, Jinwoo refuses to take responsibility for the mess he created. Right on cue, Jin Sung storms into the room, boiling with pure unfiltered rage, ordering his pathetic excuse for a younger brother to step outside. Meanwhile, Yeren drags Jun Hyun back up those stairs, just to check if Wolfie caused another scene, pushing poor Jun Hyun straight to the brink of utter exhaustion. Outside, Jinwoo desperately begs his brother for mercy, but Jin Sung just drags him into the courtyard and tosses him across the dirt like a worthless piece of trash. He reminds Jinwoo what happens if he blows this contract too, since mere words clearly never get through to him. Jin Sung decides to teach him a lesson, using his boots instead. Meanwhile, Wolfgang and the professor head right toward the chaos. Along the way, the professor mentions that he never got the opportunity to question Wolfie directly, needing his devil hunter license without any complications. Wolfie tells the professor to ask whatever is on his mind. It turns out he wants to know how Wolfie detected that demonic presence. Before the duel even started, the professor explains that his constellation mastery surpasses nearly every active devil hunter out there, yet even he failed to detect that sinister aura until it was already too late to ignore. He never realized Cerberus was inside Jinwoo until it fully broke free. On top of that, Wolfie used advanced spatial magic, summoned mythical Fenrir, and yanked his weapon with pure telekinesis, making his enrollment completely absurd. The professor has genuinely never seen a hunter stack so many crazy abilities. He suggests Wolfie skip the academy entirely and simply wait for the upcoming rank promotion exam, since that would be 10 times faster. Besides, he doubts there is anything left he could possibly teach someone so. Overpowered, Wolfie cuts him off and charges toward Jiren, who is frantically trying to stop Jin Sung from beating his own brother to death. Jun Hyun tries calming Jin Sung down too, wondering what could have possessed him. Suddenly, the professor steps in and delivers a swift, well-deserved slap across his face, warning him that hunters are strictly forbidden from brawling outside dungeons. Doing it on campus grounds will easily cost his license. Furthermore, he must apologize for manhandling the professor's student without permission. He needs to back down now, or the professor will gladly use force. Jin Sung cools off slightly, demanding to know why the professor keeps calling Jinwoo his student. After all, Jinwoo has no contract with any constellation. To make matters worse, he formed a pact with a literal demon instead. Yet the academy is still willing to take him in, the professor clarifies. that a constellation contract has nothing to do with being his chosen disciple. Reluctantly, Jin Sung asks him to accept his brother and storms off campus. Later, Jin Woo lies inside the infirmary without receiving any medical treatment or medicine. A concerned Yaren asks if he will be fine, so the professor explains that the academy is surrounded by powerful ancient barriers, and one of them. Healing magic is already mending Jin Woo's wounds on the spot. Still, the spell only repairs physical injuries, not the trauma he endured. Yaren can only wonder what drove an older brother to brutalize his own sibling like this. The professor remembers how fiercely Jin Woo defended his brother back there, almost like a fanatic devotee, and how Jin Sung slipped away once the professor confirmed he would still let Jin Woo enroll. Only those two brothers truly know what happened. Wolfie returns after securing Cerberus's corpse, fully prepared to move. When Yarn reaches out toward the pelt, he stops her instantly, warning that dark energy still lingers on it. Meanwhile, out in the parking lot, Jun Wan is tearing into Jin Sung for handling this whole mess in the most reckless way imaginable. He could have talked it out or waited until Jin Woo returned home instead of exploding, but Jin Sung snaps, telling Jun Wan to back off. From private family business, Jun Wan keeps pressing, trying to fathom what twisted his longtime friend. He demands to know if it connects to that recent disappearance. Jin Sung brushes it off, warning this nosy companion to stop poking around in his affairs, but Jun Wan refuses to let it go. Jin Sung sneers at his little royal inspector act, turning to leave. He questions why Jun Wan stopped investigating his own father's history. That's when Jun Wan reveals he walked away from the association entirely, which means the association already suspects the forbidden power his father is wielding, yet Jun Wan admits they remain in the dark because he hid the details from his report. Even so, the association will never tolerate it once they learn that Jin Sung's clan is actively channeling demonic strength. Jun Wan kept quiet purely out of loyalty, though Jin Sung can hardly tell whether to thank his friend or despise him. Back over at the archaeology office, Wolfie asks for an introduction to a skilled blacksmith to forge Cerberus's remains into sturdy armor. Yurin admits she knows little about craft gear. Stepping aside to let the senior handle it, he breaks down the reality for Wolfie. Custom hunter gear exists, but hunters cannot simply walk up and place custom orders. Instead, they must auction off the Cerberus carcass on the open market, taking the cash payout to purchase quality battle gear from that very same exchange. Yurin asks him to photograph and list the item, while he demands for help with tedious research in return. When they ask Wolfie what kind of equipment he wants, he bluntly shrugs, admitting it is not for him. Soon enough, the Cerberus post lands right before Jin Woo's father, whose expression turns grim. Questioning his staff, the secretary confirms that Jin Woo still has not come back from the Hunter Academy. The assistant breaks down the entire clash, detailing how Jin Woo fought Wolfie until Cerberus ended up dead. He adds that Jin Sung beat his younger brother senseless, sending him straight to the medical ward. Sizing up this suspicious Wolfgang outsider, the patriarch immediately instructs his aide to summon the cleaners and erase him quietly. He nearly marks Jin Woo down for disposal as well, but pauses, choosing to preserve Jin Sung's mental stability above all else. Instead, he commands them to drag Jin Woo home so he can settle his final punishment personally, but stepping toward the doorway, he catches Jin Sung eavesdropping their private talk. Jinung quickly denies hearing anything, but as the golden boy, his father shrugs it off. In fact, he promises that total control of this world will soon belong to them once his true awakening completes. Yet instead of celebrating, Jinung looks completely horrified. The moment he leaves the room, his father orders the chief secretary to monitor Jin Sung closely. Flashing back in time, Jin Woo opens his eyes to find Jinung urging him to brand a Cerberus tattoo onto his skin to seal a demonic contract. When the monster finally manifests, Jinung tells Jin Woo to yield to every demand, even if it falls short of their old constellation, since this demon and a hunter license will let him easily reach rank C. Jin Woo yanks his arm back, insisting that despite his past sins, selling his soul to a demonic beast crosses a line, but Jinung warns him that refusing means certain death, leaving him zero room for hesitation. Their father shows absolutely no mercy toward his own kin, making this dark pact their only leverage. Pleasing their ruthless father with this beast acts like a life insurance policy. Their Father spent several years obsessed with unlocking an unmatched power that no one in world has ever wielded. Jinwoo begs him to contact his association, allied to stop their father, flat out refusing to finalize this demonic deal, especially since Cerberus takes half of his remaining lifespan. Jin Sung explains that involving Jun Hyuan is out of the question, since doing so guarantees Jun Hyuan's doom, making the Cerberus pact their sole shot at surviving. Returning to the present, Jin Woo awakens in tears over his beloved brother right as a massive portal opens and a giant hand reaches out. Knowing how frightening this appears to someone who barely regained consciousness, Wolfie tries to reassure him, calmly advising him to surrender without resisting. Meanwhile, Jainong sneaks back into the academy, undercover in a mask and disguise. He needs to rescue Jin Woo before their father strikes, yet out of nowhere, the professor spots him from his office window while Jainong creeps through the corridor. By the time Jainong bursts into the clinic, Jin Woo has already yielded without a fight, vanishing straight into the dimensional rift. Suddenly, the professor catches up and traps Jainong in midair, delivering the very same warning that Wolfie gave Jin Woo to surrender peacefully. Meanwhile, a confused Jin Woo wonders why Wolfie keeps popping up, only to hear that Wolfie plans on turning him into his very first subordinate, demanding he strip down for measurements. Jin Woo panics, never expecting the gateway to lead into such an awkward scene, and pushes back immediately, but Wolfie assures him this process is strictly practical. If he demonstrates true dedication, Wolfie promises to persuade the barbarian constellation to renew their pact, although nothing is guaranteed. That mighty constellation always respects honest effort and raw grit. Even the faintest hope of redeeming his mistake convinces Jin Woo to swallow his pride and accept the proposition, asking Wolfie what kind of fighter he needs to turn into. Wolfie smirks and informs him that moving forward, he will be transformed into the ultimate shield warrior. Once the sizing wraps up, Wolfie instructs his companion to track down a heavy shield built specifically to fit Jin Woo's massive frame. His ally mentions a buyer already placed an offer on the Cerberus remains, funding the custom shield immediately. Wolfie thinks that this setup will be it is best to see things in person, so they head out immediately, while Jin Woo carries the Cerberus remains. He silently prays the buyer is not his father. Right then, Jin Sung gets an urgent text from the professor, likely regarding the guy he just caught, wondering if he returned with another demonic crest to force Jin Woo into a pact with an evil spirit. The professor warns him how devastating that price truly is, yet Jin Sung stays quiet, insisting things are better this way, but the professor strongly disagrees, arguing they should run far away from their current mess. In fact, he offers to help them escape, but Jainong refuses to drag the professor into his twisted family drama. That is when the professor reveals Jin Woo is with Wolfie and the excavation crew, meaning reaching Junwan leads directly to Jin Woo. Furthermore, he refuses to take Jin Woo as his student. Hearing this, Jin Sung snaps back, demanding the professor keep his original promise, but the professor drops the friendly act, reminding him that demon hunters are always the first to clash with demonic threats. Hunters must stay prepared for death at any moment, fighting alongside allies they trust with their lives. On the other hand, the professor cannot trust anyone, treating the academy as a mere hiding spot. He can offer help, but only if they explain everything first. Finally, Jainong opens up. Even though his father was a legendary martial artist, he was never picked by any constellation. Despite building a massive business empire, he felt the harsh reality of being ordinary in a world ruled by hunters and constellations. Things seemed fine once a contract was formed, but that pact was suddenly annulled. He recalls receiving his first grand invitation 15 years after securing that initial deal, yet right after getting invited, the contract got abruptly cancelled and he was turned away, beside losing an immense amount of magical aura. His father could never stomach the sheer humiliation. Naturally, in his desperation, he formed a dark pact with a terrifyingly powerful demon outside the Korean Hunter Association. Nobody can halt his power-crazed father, and he doubts they will make a move until disaster strikes. The professor gets all that, but questions why he brutally attacked his own little brother earlier today. Jainong admits that their father is already completely possessed by the demonic entity. He barely stopped his father from killing Jin Woo after the boy angered a divine constellation. He pushed that demonic power onto Jin Woo just to shield him From their father, beating Jin Woo in public was a show to prove to his father that he was handling Jin Woo himself before the old man took lethal action. Worse yet, Jainong reveals his father has already unleashed the cleaners. Even the professor recognizes that elite hit squad, killers far deadlier than a rank hunters. Jainong admits he has no right to beg for forgiveness, but he did whatever it took to keep Jin Woo alive. None of this tragedy happens if the contract had held. Still, Jin Woo does not deserve to be cast aside like a broken promise. Jainong vows to do everything humanly possible within his power to fix this family nightmare. The following morning, his brother hands Jin Woo a brand new shield. Wolfie gives a nod, praising the lightweight yet solid defense as ideal for novice training, but looking at the sturdy gear, Jin Woo does not seem too thrilled. He wanted a real offensive weapon, refusing to play captain America, whom he considers Marvel's biggest hypocrite for lecturing Nick. Wolfie gives him the exact same brutal treatment Tony got, making sure Jin Woo understands his limits. As he is right now, he cannot even scratch a demon, but a shield can buy time. It keeps him breathing until his combat skills catch up. Still, Jin Woo hates the utter disrespect. Wolfie looks right into his eyes and bluntly calls him weak to his face without hesitation. Sure, the kid throws heavy punches, but he never pulls out his real hidden potential. He has to release every ounce of power at the exact right second in battle. Otherwise, he will just panic and lean on demonic power like he did during yesterday's spar. Jin Woo cannot argue with cold hard facts when Wolfie spells it out like that. He reluctantly takes up the shield like Captain Korea as the scene shifts across town. Over at Chairman Kim's mansion, the father of Jin Sung and Jin Woo gathers his circle. Down in the cold basement with his chief secretary and a woman, Chairman Kim begins pouring. He drips his blood into a dark cauldron, claiming he no longer needs the Hunter Association. This dark pact promises total invincibility the moment his fresh blood drips into the dark brew. A glowing crimson magic circle instantly ignites across the stone floor of the chamber. Chairman Kim screams an incantation at the top of his lungs, offering his sacrificial blood. He chants a bizarre, drawn-out demonic spell as the chief secretary watches closely. The secretary and his glamorous wife eagerly wait for the chairman to claim absolute supremacy, expecting endless wealth and supreme authority to trickle down straight into their pockets. The dark chant drags on, calling for living sacrifices and tearing open the abyss. He is directly calling forth the dreadful Lord of Darkness, known as Tenebris Dominus. Suddenly, a monstrous hand reaches out from the void, massive and grotesque to behold. It clutches Chairman Kim straight by the skull, swallowing his flesh to take physical form. The secretary and his wife freeze in panic. With their boss consumed, their promotions vanish. Yet a missed promotion quickly becomes the absolute least of their terrifying problems. The demon whips out a jagged chained blade, instantly slicing through the secretary's wife. In a single strike, the secretary is stripped of everything he loved. He watches helplessly as she falls. Right then, Chairman Kim's agonized voice echoes from within. The old man cries that the demon completely possessed his soul and stolen control. He desperately pleads for the secretary to contact anyone who can destroy the monster, begging him to summon his sons before his consciousness fades away into total oblivion. Outside, the crimson sun bleeds across the horizon as dark miasma blankets the heavens. The professor is completely baffled, but Jin senses the dark aura and dreads the worst. An urgent incoming call from the panicked secretary instantly confirms his worst nightmare. Meanwhile, deep inside the archaeology department basement, Jin Woo complains loudly. He insists this dim underground space is no proper arena for combat training. Storage rooms are meant for locked goods, so they ought to move somewhere outside. But the archaeology crew has no fancy training field. Wolfie orders his #1 subordinate to relax and stop wearing emotions openly. Warning that emotional outbursts leave fatal openings during combat, Jin Woo steels himself. Accepting the critique like a true warrior, Wolfie promises to hold back on the opening blow, then immediately unleashes a devastating strike like a blazing meteor tearing forward. That hardly looks gentle, yet Jin Woo grits his teeth and somehow deflects the blow. The force slides him meters backward across the floor, yet Wolfie nods in mild approval. He is genuinely impressed the rookie kept his balance, though it was merely a warm-up tap. Wolfie orders him to lock down that exact stance and drill his defensive footing relentlessly. Woo locks in immediately. Whenever things get serious, he steps up without hesitation because no slacker could ever score over 2,000 points, Meanwhile, Wolfie clearly has zero respect for whatever rating that fragile wall gave out. It could barely take Wolfie's casual punch. Right then, Jinwoo's phone suddenly buzzes, making the guy break his fighting stance instantly. Before Wolfie can even chew him out, he notices the grim look on his face. This clearly is not good news at all, likely a call from the chief secretary, since Jinwoo quickly bows out and bolts straight out the door. Yaren wonders what went wrong, while Wolfie instantly gets a terrible feeling about the situation. Cutting over to the professor, he is stunned to learn Tiguan performed a demonic descent ritual. The chief secretary urgently explains that Tiguan was barely conscious when he got away, begging them to hurry before it is too late. Jinsung chooses to rush in alone, asking the professor to contact the association right away. But the professor warns him that this has gone way beyond a simple family dispute. Anyone can make the report, so as a seasoned devil hunter, he should come along. Yet Jinsung argues that an alert coming from a high-ranking hunter like the professor carries far more weight than reports from two relative nobodies like the secretary and himself. The chief secretary begs to tag along to save his wife, but Jinsung insists he remain behind to gather whatever backup he can manage to find. Promising to bring her back safely, Jinsung dashes out. Meanwhile, Wolfie feels that ominous dread growing even stronger by the second, making him decide to step outside and investigate. Yaren wonders if he truly senses danger, or if he is just dodging cleaning duties. Wolfie simply tells her to look out the window, even though it should be broad daylight. The sky outside has turned pitch black. On top of that, an unsettling pressure hangs heavy in the air, convincing Wolfgang without a doubt that a demon has manifested. Yaren struggles to believe it, since a physical demon manifest in the real world is completely different from a simple pact like the one subordinate number 1 made. Naturally, Jinwoo has been demoted to subordinate number 1 in his eyes. Wolfie warns her that the rules have changed now, and the demons are finally launching an invasion. After biding their time in the dark for 1,000 long years, they have returned to cause chaos, and Wolfie is ready to slaughter every last demon. Meanwhile, Jinsung finally arrives at his family residence, but before he can step inside, he realizes disaster has already struck. The entire building detonates in a massive blast, blowing apart completely as molten lava erupts straight toward the sky in absolute chaos. Seeing the explosion from afar, Wolfie commands Yaren to evacuate to safety immediately. Before retreating, she urges him to stay cautious since the Hunter Association is on the way. Of course, Wolfie has no intention of waiting around for backup to arrive. He is determined to hunt down every single monster with his own 2 hands, crushing them all as the last barbarian. Meanwhile, an injured Jinsung barely survives, desperately shouting at his father to resist the demonic entity taking him over. But the demon Tenebrous hates noisy pests and immediately silences Jinsung, driving a sharp chain straight through his torso while coldly mocking his futile cries. He mocks that his father is gone forever, though Jinsung will not live long enough to mourn him anyway, since Tenebrous prepares to slaughter father and son together. The demon plans to eradicate all humanity from Earth, yet Jinsung keeps desperately screaming out, praying his voice can reach through the darkness to save his father before Tenebrous strikes. He is completely bewildered. Jainung is Korean, yet cannot understand what he is saying. In Korean about his father being gone, Tenebrous immediately aims for Jainung's head, targeting the open gap to silence him permanently, but before the lethal spear arrow can strike, it is blocked completely by Jin Woo's shield. With a confident smirk, Jin Woo tells Jainung that he will definitely protect him this time around. The scene shifts over to China, where 2 A-rank hunters, Zai and Batty Yangyang, are ready to clear the entire dungeon by themselves. Suddenly, a massive dragon breath blast strikes them, which Yangyang manages to deflect. Seizing the opening, Zai strikes and slays the dragon. They have finally conquered an A-rank dungeon all on their own, but their victory celebration is abruptly interrupted by an ambush, with 2 swift strikes, both A-rank hunters are eliminated before they can even notice their attacker. All of that is because the assassin is a cleaner backed by the Night Messenger constellation. Even elite A-rankers pose 0 threat to him. The cleaner heads straight toward his next target's coordinates without delay. That next target happens to be Wolfgang. Now this was actually a flashback, because in the present timeline, the cleaner is already in Korea. In fact, he is perched atop a building directly behind Wolfgang. He does not care about the chaos around him. The dark, stormy sky only makes his assassination job much easier. hiring a cleaner for an F-rank hunter means something must be unusual about this target. He needs to eliminate him quickly, and here is his chance. He unleashes the exact same ambush used against those A-rankers, but Wolfgang senses the strike instantly and parries it with his blade, yet toxic gas erupts on impact. It was a cunning two-stage strike, just as the cleaner prepares to report his successful kill to his superiors. A dire constellation warning flashes. His divine patron is panicked, desperately ordering an immediate retreat. The cleaner cannot grasp why his constellation is terrified, but a second later, the cleaner finds out. With one clean slash, Wolfgang executes the assassin, stating coldly that he never becomes prey and nobody should ever disrupt his hunt. Just like that, the cleaner is wiped out of existence. Meanwhile, back with Jinwoo, he is desperately deflecting incoming strikes while protecting his brother. Remembering Wolfgang's advice, he hopes to endure until backup hunters arrive at the blast site. Unfortunately, Tenebris is not willing to wait. Before Jinwoo can react, another terrifying demon appears right in front of him and slams Jinwoo violently onto the very person he was shielding. Reeling and confused about where this beast emerged from, Jinwoo spots a massive abyss opening before Tenebris. That rift is acting as a direct portal connecting humanity and the underworld horde. In seconds, countless demonic creatures start crawling out, ready to transform the entire city into pure hell. Jinwoo can either panic and run away or stand his ground to protect his brother. Without hesitation, he steps forward and blocks every incoming monster strike head-on. He is determined to hold the line until reinforcements show up. Relentlessly, wave after wave of brutal attacks hammer down on him until his shield begins to fracture. Pushed to the brink, he must press forward on sheer willpower alone. Retreating is not an option because that means abandoning his brother to die. Suddenly, a flying sword tears through the air and slices down the beast. That blade belongs to none other than Wolfgang. He commends Jinwoo for holding the front line, telling him he has earned the right to stand tall before him. Allies with a shield raised, as Wolfie steps forward to take charge of this battle. With one clean swing, he wipes out every single mob extra from the scene. Now only Tenebris remains, and the demon wastes no time launching his assault. Wolfgang parries effortlessly, telling Jinwoo to kick back and watch the real main character work. Wolfgang closes the distance in a flash, demanding answers right to his face. He tells the demon to spill everything he knows about Devil House right now. Wolfgang generously offers Tenebris a quick death if he cooperates, but he refuses. Tenebris mocks him with laughter, completely unaware that Wolfie is dead serious about erasing him. Demon still refuses to take a human seriously, immediately unleashing Umbra Servatus. It is a shadow binding spell, meant to humble this arrogant mortal warrior. Wolfgang hates cheap parlor tricks, while Tenebris already assumes the fight is over. But our boy still grips his blade, swinging hard to carve right through the trap. He shatters those demonic shadow chains and breaks free without breaking a sweat. Right then, Tenebris realizes this guy is definitely not just some average human warrior. But while the demon keeps yapping, Wolfie gets bored and lunges straight at him. He drives his sword straight through Tenebris's chest, quickly evaluating his opponent's true strength. Wolfie concludes the demon is pathetic, way too weak to even remember. He will not even bother asking his name, pushing the demon past his absolute limit. A little trash talk was fine, but Wolfie is being straight up disrespectful now. The furious boss commands his minions to attack, yet they get obliterated instead. Even the stone-hard demon gets totally crushed, leaving Jinwoo feeling completely speechless. Jinwoo felt silly for worrying earlier after watching Wolfgang tear through everyone effortlessly. One thing is crystal clear to Jinwoo: stay on this monster's good side forever. Otherwise, he will end up flying across the room, just like these shattered demons. Now Jinwoo has to dodge airborne demon corpses just to keep his brother safe. Wolfie warns him to back off to safety before getting crushed by collateral damage. Jinwoo nods very humbly, thanking the heavens that Wolfie is fighting on their side. Meanwhile, the demon boss is having the absolute worst nightmare of his life. Wondering who this terrifying guy even is, backed into a corner, he plays his trump card. He triggers his ultimate shadow evolution spell, enveloping his entire body in dark power. Wolfie just stands there calmly, waiting for the monster to finish his transformation sequence. Now fully evolved, the demon lunges forward, and Wolfie prepares a single finishing strike. Jinwoo watches from the side, totally annoyed by this blatant pay-to-win upgrade. He calls out the shadow demon for cheating with these absurd modded stats. Meanwhile, the demon flashes that classic villain smirk he practiced in the mirror. A plain old sword strike was never going to cut it against someone this powerful. But a true predator never worries about cheaters, and Wolfie remains completely unfazed. The sheer disrespect enrages the shadow boss so much that he completely loses his composure. Resorting to raw insults, he hurls curses at Wolfie before going in for the kill. But right as the deadly strike closes in, we suddenly cut to a quick flashback. Wolfie had previously asked his close friend Jonas about demons immune to physical strikes. Jonas knew all about shadow monsters turning into intangible mist during high-level combat encounters. Yet he assured Wolfgang that he had absolutely nothing to worry about in battle. Wolfie had zero reason to fear them, all thanks to Jonas's divine holy warhammer. Blessed by angels with crackling lightning, this weapon is about to wreck that shadow boss. Physical forms mean nothing to Mjolnir. Wolfie brandishes the sacred hammer, and suddenly, Umbra realizes his time is up. After sleeping for centuries, his awakening was totally wasted. Getting sent straight back to sleep without enjoying a single second of freedom, eternal. Sleep permanently, Wolfie thanks Jonas before smashing Umbra with the divine hammer. Completely obliterating most of his health bar, he offers the demon one final chance to spill the location of Devil House. Instead, Umbra takes advantage of the pause to liquefy into slime and flee, leaving behind the chairman's body. At least the host was saved, but the creature barely gets anywhere before getting struck by lightning. Unfortunately, Umbra tumbles straight down into his own pit. Vanishing entirely, Wolfgang is furious about losing the single lead he had regarding Devil House. Right on cue, a stylish woman in glasses approaches, commanding the nearby hunters to eliminate every remaining monster. She turns to Wolfie, introducing herself as Cho Anha, the vice president of the Hunter Association, explaining that her squad will finish cleaning up the battlefield while she handles him. She formally asks him to come along to headquarters, assuming he still wants intel on the Demon Lord Devil House. Inside the association building, Wolfgang comes face to face with the association president, Li Zhongwan. Mr. President usually intimidates everyone around him, yet staring down such an absolute powerhouse clearly rattles his composure. He sizes Wolfie up, realizing the victory over Umbra was definitely no fluke, since Wolfgang hates wasting breath on small talk. He demands answers immediately. Li reveals that the Demon Lord Devil House resides within the Underhell. Because demons cannot tolerate sunlight, they retreated deep underground during ancient times and constructed their own shadowy realm beneath the earth. Today, that subterranean world swarms with high-ranking demons and terrifying minions. Luckily, those monsters have not invaded Korean soil just yet, but Wolfgang has zero interest in a history lesson. He only cares about finding the entrance. Lee is not finished talking though. Instead, he mentions Wolfie smashing the sacred relic during the promotion exam, followed by that shattered dungeon barrier. The violent Cerberus clash, the cleaner incident, and now the battle with Umbra. After running through the entire laundry list of chaotic events, Lee points out that a legendary entity suddenly resurrecting and clashing with demons everywhere he goes feels far too convenient to simply be pure chance. Before offering any cooperation, Lee must verify the man's true identity and underlying motives. Unfolding his paper fan, he channels his celestial constellation, the son of Hwanung, summoning the sacred altar of Chamseondan, facing the structure. Wolfie asks if the president actually suspects him of siding with demons. Lee denies it, but insists someone bearing his heavy responsibility must remain cautious. Outside, the vice president glances down at her watch, expecting both men back from the altar by now. The delay surprises her, making her assume that Lee is conducting a thorough interrogation against such a dangerous figure. Her mind wanders, picturing the formidable president easily subduing Wolfgang with absolute authority. Finally, the barrier drops, revealing the shocking outcome of their private confrontation. And it is the president kneeling on the floor. Wolfie strides past him casually, remarking that for someone holding the top rank, Lee is surprisingly weak. Yuna is completely stunned by the scene, quickly warning Wolfie to show proper respect. With total respect being Korea's top hunter, Wolfie clarifies that he isn't trying to offend anyone, just stating facts. Yuna gets totally baited, immediately summoning her royal constellation, the infamous concubine of Emperor Xuanzong of Tang, a wicked constellation for a fierce hunter. Lee tries warning her not to do anything reckless, but her constellation is already gliding over to seduce Wolfie. He is not petrified yet, though maybe. Rock solid, just joking, Wolfie is a fiercely loyal married warrior. These cheap tricks will never sway him. Seeing zero reaction, Yuna assumes he is completely under her spell, but the guy is just waiting to see what this pathetic constellation can even pull off. Still, he has zero patience for parlor tricks and slams Yuna down, right after Wolfie steps up to Lee, demanding every single detail about the Underhell. Meanwhile, down on the third floor of the Underhell, Umbra reaches the royal hall of Devil House, begging an old friend for a massive favor. Devil House cuts him off immediately, questioning when they ever became pals. When Wolfie crushed Devil House's forces, Umbra took advantage and snatched away his entire domain. Umbra desperately trades critical intel for aid, explaining that he just crossed paths with a vicious surface barbarian actively searching for Devil House to exterminate him. That definitely grabs his attention, so Devil House agrees to step in, looking at Umbra's battered state. Devil House instantly figures out he just wants a safe path home. Deeply relieved, Umbra promises to help Devil House descend straight into sectors far past the third floor once his strength fully recovers. Deeper sectors sound tempting, but petrifying this slimy traitor sounds far better. Using the exact petrification curse he previously used against Wolfie, Devil House takes his revenge, mocking Umbra for foolishly trusting the word of a demon. He then hurls the petrified Umbra into a dark pit filled with other stone statues, likely past traitors who crossed him. Still, Devil House is furious that Wolfie survived. It boils his blood that a lone barbarian wiped out his whole army and nearly butchered him. Meanwhile, Wolfie points out to Lee that local hunters cannot handle these demonic threats, asking if any elite powerhouses actually exist. Lee admits he sits at the apex in Korea, though other nations possess warriors far above his level. Realizing nobody here can help, Wolfie decides he must invade the Underhell entirely alone. Lee tries reasoning with him, urging the warrior not to rush blindly. After all, a demon appearing was a freak anomaly, making any sudden follow-up attack seem highly improbable. Wolfie stays unconvinced, knowing that something bizarre is unfolding right now. Hours have already slipped by since Umbra fell, yet the eerie gloom refuses to lift at all. The sun remains blood red across pitch-black skies. Suddenly, violent tremors rattle the earth as Wolfie catches a familiar, ominous presence. Another underworld portal violently erupts, unleashing demon vocales right into Seoul. Meanwhile, demon Batwing manifests in Daejeon, and seductive demon Astaroth strikes Haju. Together, this monstrous trio immediately unleashes total devastation across the human realm. Standing in Seoul, Wolfie locks onto vocales instantly. He leaps straight from the 75th floor balcony window to face the threat head-on. One demon barely went down, and another already shows up in its place. He wonders if the full demon invasion has officially begun all over again. It feels strange to him, yet he still has to handle it. Meanwhile, Lee is stunned, seeing demons spawn back to back, but watching this barbarian dive off the ledge from the 75th floor like nothing leaves him utterly speechless. Honestly, he pities the demons picking a fight with Wolfie. Meanwhile, Yuna finally wakes back up. Rewinding 10 minutes into the past, at the Grand Blue Dragon family residence in Paju, where Yuna Go, the true clan successor, is completely immersed in her fierce training. Her form looks sharp, yet it still falls short of her own high standards. As the family heir, she must grow stronger and refuse to let anyone sway her. Never again will she let empty praise inflate her ego and set her up for another brutal reality check like her last promotion exam disaster. She remains dead set on catching the constellation's attention once again to forge a proper contract after her previous one was cancelled. Rather than falling into despair over the setback, she channels that humiliation into pure fuel. Her determination shows clearly right across her bruised hands. Just then, her proud father walks in and compliments her sharp posture, claiming she is ready to inherit the family leadership right now. He tears up, showing how doting fathers treat their beloved daughters. Now compare that to how sons get treated, like Jinwoo and his brutally cold father. That man literally called in cleaners just to sweep away his so-called useless son. Yuna quickly begs her dad to stop embarrassing her. Now keep in mind this proud father is actually an S-rank hunter, Go Seongyang. She knows her own limits. and realizes she must earn the constellation's respect all over again. Hearing this makes Papa go swell with pride as fresh tears spill down. She then asks if everything outside is fine, since things sound unusually noisy out there. Knowing how stressed Yuna already feels from training, Papa Go decides to hide the truth about the demon attack tearing through Seoul. Right then, a massive crash echoes from outside. They dash out only to discover Astaroth preparing to wreck the entire estate. Papa Go drops into a combat stance and orders Yuna to retreat quickly inside and alert the Hunter Association about the demon threat before striking. Astaroth demands to know if the old hunter knows where the barbarian is hiding. Turns out these three powerful demons did not show up on a whim. They were ordered by their dark master to invade the surface and track down the barbarian. During that meeting, one demon asked a very reasonable question: how could they spot one barbarian among millions of humans? The demon lord replied that finding him is simple. Just breach the surface and you will see a brainless maniac charging head first while swinging his weapon. Whoever brings him in gets rewarded handsomely. Back on the surface, the demon still thinks those vague instructions sound ridiculous. No sane human would dare rush him like that. Well, he is dead wrong. Suddenly, he spots a lone figure barreling straight toward him at full speed, swinging his weapon wildly. Turns out that wild description was spot on. The demon laughs at Wolfie sprinting toward death and decides to end him quickly with a single punch. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to Astaroth facing Papa Go. Unfortunately, the veteran hunter gets overwhelmed immediately, stunned by the demon's insane power. That is the stark power gap between a demon and top hunters. Astaroth still commends him for putting up a solid fight before demanding all information. On the barbarian, Papa Go refuses to give her anything, not even a scrap. Unfortunately, Astaroth does not take kindly to such blatant disrespect, and lifts him into the air by his neck. Just then, Yuna returns after alerting the Hunter Association, stunned to see her father already overpowered by the demon. She desperately wants to help, but what can she possibly do without an active constellation contract? If she tries to step in right now, it will only lead to 2 casualties instead of 1. If only her contract had not been terminated, she could actually fight. To make matters worse, she is exhausted from training. What chance does she have when her father, who is far stronger, lost to the demon? Dark, paralyzing thoughts flood Yuna's entire mind. Just then her gaze locks with Papa Go's, and his eyes silently tell her that doing nothing is completely fine. He simply wants her safe and bids his farewell. Right as Astaroth prepares to crush his bones, she spots Yuna charging in mid-strike. Astaroth failed to detect her movement until it was too late. Yuna forces the demon onto the defense and manages to pull her father away. Papa Go apologizes immediately for making her leap into this deadly battle for him. He orders her to fall back, warning that this demon is way beyond her level. Yuna refuses, determined to face her head-on. She also apologizes for taking so long to react. She thought she was prepared to seize every opening. Yet useless excuses kept clouding her mind. From here on out, never again will she hesitate, and never again will she doubt. That resolve moves the constellation, earning high praise for standing resolute in the face of sheer terror. Without delay, the constellation offers a formal contract to Go Yuna. She seals the pact with the Blue Rose Spearman, Joan of Arc, officially becoming the chosen successor of the family. Astaroth is furious over the timing of this sudden pact. She immediately moves to eliminate Yuna before she becomes dangerous, but Yuna swiftly dodges using Water Walk before Astaroth can even grasp what happened. Yuna unleashes the Spear of Penetration from behind, landing a devastating, decisive blow. Over at the main battle, Wolf sees the massive punch hurtling toward him and uses his sword to block it. Meanwhile, Yuna is stunned to witness another demon spawn without warning. Right now, she has a front row view as Wolf deflects the punch and uses its momentum to reach Vocalis's blind spot. Charging straight in once again, he drives his sword across Vocalis's chest. Forget the demon's punch. This is what true destruction looks like. 1 strike slams Vocalis into the ground, leaving Yuna wondering who the real monster actually is, but her focus shatters when falling debris completely crushes her car. Wolf lands directly in front of her, not to show off his terrifying aura, but to ask why Yuna followed him here when she is so weak. He is not mocking her, just stating cold facts. Even through the shock, Yuna understands his point and quickly explains that She came to brief him on the crisis. 3 demons just spawned, simultaneously across 3 different locations, with vocales appearing in Seoul. One is in nearby Pudu, while the third rests slightly farther away in Daejeon. Yaren was right on the mark. Modern humans have built a rapid intelligence network. Wolfie politely asks the vice president which location would be the better choice. He wants her to evaluate the intel and recommend where he should go. Meanwhile, Devil House seethes in rage over Vulkas losing the fight so quickly. Vulkas should have lured Wolfie into the Underhell instead of fighting him head-on. Even so, hope remains, because 2 of his demons are still very much alive. If just one can drag Wolfie down to the sunless depths of the Underhell, where Wolfie cannot recharge, Devil House will hold a massive advantage, back in Pudu. Steroth cannot believe an attack of this caliber came from a mere human. Seeing it land, Yuna immediately doubles down on Astaroth with another fierce strike. Astaroth is heavily wounded, but Yuna's stamina is also taking a massive beating. Already drained from training, handling the constellation's power is pushing her to the brink. Even so, she believes she can endure until the demon is finally put down. Right then, Astaroth reaches her limit and snaps completely. She morphs into a hideous, monstrous beast, radiating an overwhelming surge of power. Astaroth never imagined mere humans would force her to reveal her true form. Yuna realizes the battle is spiraling out of control as Astaroth attacks with all limbs. Astaroth unleashes heavy combo strikes, but Yuna deflects them with fluid circular swings. Just as Yuna prepares to counter, she realizes her movements are a fraction too slow. Now Astaroth locks in with a guaranteed lethal attack, leaving 0 escape routes. Suddenly, mysterious chains wrap around Astaroth's arms and legs, pinning her down. The secret royal inspector has arrived on the scene to apprehend the wicked. Jun Hyun introduces himself to Yuna, explaining he was scouting nearby when he sensed the demon. Yuna warns him to back off, knowing a C-rank hunter cannot withstand this demon. Jun Hyun tells her not to worry, as his constellation scales directly against evil. Against a pure demon, his celestial authority gains an enormous combat advantage. Even Astaroth cannot comprehend why her overwhelming strength is suddenly failing her. The more force she exerts, the heavier the binding chains crush down. With the monster restrained, Jun Hyun tells Yuna to strike the finishing blow. Yuna charges forward, only to realize closing the distance was a deadly mistake. A strange stone glows inside Astaroth's mouth, threatening to be the last thing Yuna sees. Yuna has no time to dodge as crimson blood violently sprays across the scene. Yet the blood belongs to Papago, who desperately pleaded with his constellation. When Yuna attacked, he begged for the strength to protect his beloved daughter. He willingly offered his own life if it meant keeping her out of harm. The constellation nods at Papago, sensing his inevitable demise and grieving deeply. It bestows divine authority upon Papago, unleashing power that shatters all mortal limits. This overwhelming surge will last until Papago's remaining life force burns out completely. Papago did not take this power solely for defense. He drives his spear into Astaroth. Astaroth's lethal strike pierces him simultaneously, and he speaks his final words to Yuna. A massive blast erupts from the collision, but Papago has not vanished into smoke. Yuna rushes into the thick haze, desperately searching for any sign of her father. Jun Hyun tries to hold her back, but Astaroth's mocking voice suddenly cuts through. The demon scoffs at Papago, shocked that he threw his life away so easily. Mortal could ever defeat her, but just as she prepares to send Yunha to the grave, she senses something terrifying, a massive, overwhelming aura. Closes in fast, she spins around only to see Wolfgang rushing straight toward her. One single look at Wolfgang and Astaroth immediately realizes that clashing with this beast will end horribly for her. Her only move is luring him toward the underworld gate to drag him down into the abyss. She calls out, claiming she wants to talk, but before she can even finish that sentence, Wolfgang cuts her clean in half, while Astaroth's upper body goes flying through the air. Wolfgang seizes the moment to strike a pose, declaring he is Wolfgang the Great, a barbarian who refuses demon bargains. Meanwhile, word arrives that Batwing has also been eliminated. That sector suffered far heavier casualties than anywhere else. They barely pulled off a victory, thanks to an exhausted S-rank hunter named Kim Han, though it came with a steep price. Over in Daejeon, cleanup efforts are underway, and Kim Han is right there helping out. She knows the survivors are totally drained, which is why she stays among them to keep spirits high. As the guild master of Sun Guild, She not only spearheaded the brutal raid against Batwing, but she also manages the entire recovery effort. True leaders like her earn every bit of respect. Few days later, Korean Hunter Association President Lee summons all the top guild masters for an urgent briefing on the crisis, and to plan their next move. Right off the bat, he drops the bomb that actual demon lords descended on South Korea, 3 of them striking all at once. The guilds stationed far from the impact zone dismissed the rumors until this very moment. Ha Yongun, master of Moonlight Guild, demands to know why no early warning was issued. Yuja from Tibik Guild struggles to believe it too, since high-tier demons have never appeared on Korean soil before. For proof, Lee presents a photo retrieved from Daejeon. Most surveillance cameras were wrecked, so this grainy snapshot is all they have, yet it clearly gets the terrifying point across, especially since the very hunter who brought that demon down sits right in the room. Kim Han backs up Lee's report, adding that the central district of Daejeon was leveled while dozens of Sun Guild elite hunters lost their lives. That devastation came from just one monster. Despite being an elite S ranker, she admits she was completely outmatched by the fiend despite her top-tier ranking. Another notable figure present is Kang Yoon, the sharp A-rank master of Sunshin Guild, famous for the Slime King raid, with all the grim facts laid bare on the table. Lee introduces the meeting's key guest, the warrior who single-handedly cut down the other 2 demon lords, Hunter Wolfgang from the Mew Agency. He walks in alongside Jin and Yaren, who look utterly overwhelmed standing before a room of S-rankers. The guild leaders have never met Wolfgang, making them instantly skeptical of his presence. One man in particular immediately kicks up a massive fuss over it. Young Gapsu, representing Gold Agency, openly claims that the Mew Agency must have staged the entire demon invasion simply for publicity. After all, Mew has a dirty reputation for doing anything when money is on the line. Yaren shamelessly agrees and piles on the insults against her own partner. President Lee quickly warns Gapsu to stop throwing around slander, but the reprimand only fires the arrogant representative up even more. He mocks the meeting, treating the gathering as a room full of nobodies. He announces that Junwoo is just a C-rank hunter with a useless constellation ability so pathetic that he retired from raiding to become an agency manager. He insists that this so-called savior standing before them is just an F-rank hunter, laughing off claims of awakening from petrification to save the world. Demonic beasts suddenly drop in, laying waste to the entire city. Yet an unranked nobody manages to obliterate demons that even top S-rank hunters fail against. Junwoo starts sweating bullets, not over petty insults, but over Wolfie losing his temper and racking up massive property damage. Just as Junwoo prepares to de-escalate the tension, the heavy doors swing open, and Papa Go walks in alongside Yuna, personally vouching for Wolfie's legitimacy. Beak Miho had sprinted to the scene to confront Astaroth, but by the moment she arrived, the demon had vanished into thin air. Papa Go lay bleeding out on the pavement, yet Junwoo told Miho to wait and observe. Wolfie unleashed Archangel healing magic to bring Papa Go back. It was unrefined, yet far beyond any recovery skill humanity had ever seen. Miho recognized Wolfie immediately from the Slime King raid incident. She already had hunches about him, possessing game-breaking secret combat powers. Witnessing such high-tier restoration magic proved that Wolfie was definitely worth investigating. Back in the present, Papa Go testifies that Wolfie obliterated the demon, assaulting their guild, and snatched him right back from the jaws of death. Staking his reputation as master, he guarantees Wolfie's strength. Miho adds that while she missed the battle, she saw him save the guild master's life. With 2 guild masters and the president backing his identity, the remaining leaders must accept Wolfie's overwhelming presence. The chairman explains the ancient petrification incident, presenting Wolfie as a warrior who battled in the Holy Demonic War millenniums ago. Little do they know, back then Wolfie was basically soloing demon hordes. They lack hard historical records, but Wolfie's raw power level speaks for itself, proving why the guild desperately sought his personal assistance. Even Gapsu starts leaning in favor, though he remains skeptical about placing trust into an F-rank hunter. That is when Wolfie finally steps up to speak. Without intending any offense, he calmly delivers a brutal reality check. He tells everyone in the room that they are completely weak and pathetic. Compared to ancient warriors, modern hunters are fragile as newborn kittens. That pushes Gapsu over the edge, causing him to lash out in total outrage. Screaming that an F-rank nobody has zero right to disrespect elite hunters, Wolfie tells him to stay quiet and face reality, stating nobody in this room would survive against real demons. Gapsu gets right up in his face, taunting that sheer muscle mass does not intimidate an elite ranker like him. As Gapsu points a finger at Wolfie, Junwoo feels a terrifying chill. Gapsu orders Wolfie to grab his lackeys and clear out right now. Tired of the endless barking, Wolfie decides a swift punch settles the debate. In the blink of an eye, Gapsu vanishes from sight. Where is? He smashed directly into the wall, completely unconscious. Every guild master freezes, while Junwoo and Yuna just sigh, having seen this beatdown coming all along. After holding back for so long, everyone expected Wolfie to be powerful, but not strong enough to drop an S-rank hunter with a single punch. Wolfie then announces that he will train everyone in this room so they can survive and protect the innocent. Despite that crazy display, the S-rankers still refuse to accept a complete stranger as their new master. It is not just pure pride. They simply have no clue how deep Wolfie's power actually goes, and if he really is strong enough to teach them. Jun Hyun's soul is practically leaving his body right now. Wolfie is far too blunt, and anyone getting offended is about to stick the MU agency with massive repair bills. Wolfie explains that he once had the exact same mindset. He truly believed raw power alone could protect everyone, but the demon assaults proved far more brutal than he ever imagined. In the end, he lost his entire family and comrades. 1,000 years ago, he saved nobody. He refuses to watch history repeat itself or let anyone else endure that same heartbreaking nightmare. That is why he plans to turn everyone here into true powerhouses, strong enough to defend everything they cherish. He knows they all have serious doubts, so time to settle this right now. He invites every S-rank hunter in the room, Korea's top elites, to jump him together. Time to establish the real hierarchy first. A monster who can take down an S-ranker with one punch, slice a demon in half instantly, and heal a dying ally with god-tier recovery magic. Just one of those feats would make anyone legendary, but Wolfie has all three. Right now he is effortlessly dodging every strike the S-rankers throw his way. Keep in mind he is pulling this off without shifting his feet even an inch. A giant musclehead tries some pro wrestling moves on him, only to realize pulling Wolfie is like moving a mountain. Deep down, the guy probably just wanted an excuse to touch those rock-hard abs. Our generous master even dishes out advice while casually crushing their pride, lecturing that a fighter must stay flexible while keeping an unbreakable stance. Heian sits this out, visibly shocked as she watches top S-rank hunters get totally outclassed. Just what is this beast? Wolfie reminds the entire group that 5 S-rankers together could not budge him. Right on cue, one hunter decides to unleash his ultimate trump card, unable to stomach his humiliation. He casts Meteor Fall and drops a massive fireball straight on Wolfie. The deafening explosion leaves the entire room stunned. Nobody expected things to escalate this far, but none of them could stop the flame mage in time. Even the musclehead thinks Young crossed the line. Young knows he overdid it, yet he puts on a fake guilty face. Suddenly, Wolfie's voice cuts through asking, "Is this all you got?" As the smoke clears, the legendary barbarian is still standing in the exact same spot without a single scratch. The guild leaders are finally realizing that logic goes out the window against this insane powerhouse. Since nobody can even lay a finger on Wolfie, he decides to give them a tiny taste of his true strength. He steps forward and slams his foot straight into the ground. The raw shockwave from that single stomp sends everyone flying across the room. It utterly demolishes the training ground too, so someone better start a fundraiser before the MU agency goes broke. Now that order is firmly established, Wolfie breaks down why Korea's top 5 could not last 5 minutes. They leaned far too heavily on borrowed power from constellations, turning them into weaklings who never bothered to build real personal strength. Taking charge as their instructor, he bans all constellation power for a week. Naturally, the guild leaders are baffled by such a bizarre command. Wolfie explains that angelic abilities and constellation powers are completely useless. Down in the demon territory known as the Underhell, in that abyss, raw physical power rules supreme. The leaders freeze, going into Underhell. They had no idea the plan was diving headfirst into enemy territory, Marching straight into a demon's stronghold leaves them at a massive disadvantage. Defending the surface once the demons emerge seems infinitely safer to them. But Wolfie counters that true training is about protecting innocent lives. Waiting until monsters invade the surface means casualties are already guaranteed. Even a victory up there would leave the world completely devastated. They must take the fight underground. Then he approaches Heian directly, telling her that sparring and extra drills are completely unnecessary for her. She has already pushed herself straight to her absolute growth ceiling. Reaching one's natural limit through pure sheer grit is genuinely extraordinary. She earned Wolfie's respect, yet more practice cannot push her further. Deep down, Heian knew the truth, even if she hated admitting it. She desperately wants power so no more allies die like back then. Mourning the fallen comrades lost against Batwing, the real training begins tomorrow. Heading out, Wolfie mentions he is starving, and Junwan happily agrees to buy him dinner, charging everything straight to the corporate account. Considering the millions owed for arena repairs, what is a little food? Meanwhile, the manager is frantically calling every single guild leader, demanding 100 million won each as an exclusive lecture fee for Wolfie. Yaren returns to the office, where the crew prepares to dig through classified Hunter Association files. Jiho asks about the big gathering. Yaren smirks, explaining Wolfie flattened an S-rank hunter and challenged everyone. Knowing how that beatdown would end, she simply packed up and left. Thanks to Wolfie's authority, they now hold access to top-secret archives. Jiho investigates global reports of people turned to stone during the incident. Tragic news, every victim crumbled into ash once curses lifted. Wolfie was the sole survivor. That anomaly leaves Jiho deeply puzzled. Why did he survive while others perished? Lost in thought, Jiho fades away. Now the remaining trio turns their full focus toward researching Underhell. Yaren quickly discovers normal people cannot even survive near the perimeter. Even elite hunters cannot endure the toxic environment before losing all health. She digs deeper through authentic leaked files rather than public PR reports. Scanning potential gateway coordinates, they suddenly spot something shockingly familiar. It is the exact cavern where they initially woke Wolfie from slumber. That very cave serves as an active entrance, leading straight into Underhell. Meanwhile, Wolfie relaxes in a luxury suite, appreciating the association's hospitality. Part of him wishes his family were here to share this scenic skyline. Right on cue, his phone buzzes with an urgent update from Yaren. News arrives that the gateway to Underhell has finally been located. She explains that it sits at the deepest point of the cavern where they discovered him, but that claim gets instantly shut down by Wolfie, who argues that a true entrance would give off demonic aura. Having already lost her entire squad and running on pure exhaustion, she wonders if the gateway is sealed, activating only under very specific conditions. That possibility makes sense and explains why Wolfie never detected any demonic presence. He suggests looking into the Crimson Moon, suspecting a direct connection between them. Now that she has a clear direction for the upcoming investigation, she ends the call, promising to reach out once solid evidence turns up. Later that afternoon, Wolfie heads over to the Hunter Association training facility, where every major guild leader has gathered. None of them want to yield to this newcomer, but they all know Wolfie operates on a completely different level. Sparring with him will definitely teach them plenty, so they swallow their pride. Gaining strength matters more than ego, but while the rest hold back, Hyun steps forward alone to confront Wolfie directly, even after he warned her that this sparring drill would offer her zero benefit. Hyun refuses to listen. She hates having her potential capped and has no intention of backing down, demanding a one-on-one duel instead. If she lands a single scratch on his body, she earns her spot in the elite training regimen. Wolfie thinks her logic is reckless, but agrees since a quick match hurts nobody. She knows Wolfie outmatches her in raw power, but believes her agility reigns supreme. Without warning, Hyun charges straight at Wolfie with blinding speed. Even top S-rank hunters struggle to track her movement across the floor. Yet Wolfie deflects her instantly, advising everyone to read the airflow instead. Relying only on sight will get them killed, but Hyun refuses to back down. The fight has barely begun as she launches relentless strikes from every angle. Wolfie parries every incoming blow with ease, keeping her offense completely neutralized. She tries to maintain pressure, but Wolfie refuses to yield an inch of ground. Not a single attack lands, and Wolfie points out how predictable her patterns are. Urging her to stay flexible, Hyun leaps back before his counter arrives. She draws a specialized bow capable of firing 5 arrows simultaneously, confident that Wolfie will struggle to block such a wide spread. But this warrior just casually overpowered 5 S-rank hunters without a scratch. 5 arrows stand little chance, though the volley flies at blistering speed. The spread cuts off every dodge path, yet the moment Hyun lands, Wolfie is already behind her, resting his blade forward while clutching the arrows. That single move ends the match, snatching arrows charged with constellation authority. Terrifies everyone watching. On top of that, he closed the distance instantly. Her speed advantage meant nothing. In a genuine battle, she would already be dead. Hyun is forced to realize that Wolfie was right about her hitting a wall. Yet having pushed this far, she refuses to walk away without everything she has. Deciding to bet it all, her spiritual energy suddenly begins to shift violently. Her mana surges wildly, surpassing every single S-rank hunter inside the training arena. But Wolfie immediately notices that this explosive power is devouring her life force. This is Kim Hyun's ultimate ability, Overdrive, pushing past every natural limit. Pushing way past her limits, she closes in for a clean strike. Wolfie's blade is down, but both clash instantly with blinding speed. The shockwave blinds onlookers. Nobody can even bear to watch the exchange, let alone challenge either fighter. As the smoke clears, only Wolfie stands. Hyun lies motionless on the ground, yet Wolfie was not the one who dropped her. Overdrive took its toll. In fact, had she channeled it properly, Wolfie knows that strike could have landed a devastating critical blow on him. Even so, she managed to leave a faint scratch across his cheek. Later at the Hunter Hospital, Hyun wakes up reeling from her crushing defeat. Even Overdrive could not do more than scratch him. She grits her teeth over her weakness when a sudden knock interrupts her thoughts. Hyun insists she wants no visitors, but this uninvited guest barged in anyway, carrying 7 massive family-sized pizza boxes. Wolfie tells her she needs real fuel to recover, though 7 boxes is insane. Korean hunters have always been dismissed compared to international standards. That sounds harsh, but the reality is undeniable. They are simply weak. Hyun, however, emerged as a beacon of hope for the entire nation. No hunter as talented as her had ever been born in Korea before. Within a few years, she was projected to surpass President Lee himself. Everyone showered her with praise as the genius who would elevate the country. With immense power came the crushing weight of public expectation. The pressure was immense, but she possessed the grit to endure it. Still, carrying the title of the nation's savior took time to accept. Constantly hearing those suffocating expectations weighed heavily on her shoulders. But back then, she found genuine comrades who reached out to her. They treated her like an actual human being, not some national symbol. Though far less powerful than her, they were dependable and loyal allies. Every dungeon raid felt fun because they were her first real friends. But whenever a dungeon clear wrapped up, greedy reporters swarmed her relentlessly. Sensationalist reporters swarmed her, chasing cheap headlines at every turn. Asking brainless questions seemed to be their only real specialty. Every time the media exhausted her, her teammates stepped in to protect her. They created a safe space where she could breathe without any judgment. Wolfie might try to comfort her, but he remains firmly in the friend zone. Even so, he still manages to bring a genuine smile to her face. Yet behind the scenes, her teammates were silently hiding a painful secret. The public viciously attacked them for holding back Korea's greatest prodigy. Accused of ruining her future, they swallowed the toxic hate in silence, all to protect Hyun and keep a genuine smile on her face. Eventually, the constant slander pushed them to prove their true worth. They entered in a ranked dungeon alone to reclaim their guild's honor. Desperate to show the world they truly belonged by her side. Fortunately, against all odds, every single one of them returned safely. That is because Hyun secretly wiped out the deadliest monsters beforehand. She sternly warned them never to embark on a dungeon raid without her again. She does not care about guild prestige, she only cares about protecting her team, warning them never to pull a reckless stunt like that again. But her plan completely backfired when her comrades believed they could conquer S-rank dungeons. The following day, disaster struck their party. By the time Hyun rushed to the scene, it was already too late. She could only stare in horror at the carnage. She blamed herself for secretly wiping out the monsters in that dungeon, unwittingly leading her allies right into their doom. Conquering that deadly dungeon made her famous across the nation and restored her guild's standing. That massive achievement earned her a promotion to S-rank hunter, but none of it mattered to her. She had lost the very people she fought so desperately to keep safe and alive. Now she bears the crushing guilt of rising to Korea's top hunter ranks. On the corpses of her fallen friends, she even thought about ending her own life, but every time she tried, the dying faces of her companions haunted her. She put up a cold, unbothered front in public, secretly drowning in isolation and grief. Right then she swore never to feel this powerless again, vowing to become strong enough to protect everyone. Looking at the empty boxes around them, Wolfie admits he understands her despair. He finally sees why she is so desperate for power. She confesses that she knows she has hit a wall, yet refuses to accept that reality. In the end, her current strength simply is not enough to protect anyone. Rather than offering empty comfort, Wolfie simply grabs another slice of pizza and shrugs. That is just how life goes. Unfair things happen to everyone in this world. He looks at her and asks if she truly desires to break through her ceiling. She stares back in confusion, since he was the one claiming she reached her peak. Wolfie clarifies that her current training methods are what will never make her stronger. He explains that the trauma chaining her past into an obsession with raw power is actively draining her life energy away. Continuing down this path will only destroy her. He bluntly asks if her fallen companions would ever want to see her suffer. Instead, she must expand her vessel, turning a small container into a massive reservoir. But the success rate is brutally low. Most hunters who attempt this end up shattered. He looks into her eyes and asks if she is truly willing to risk everything. Without a single second of hesitation, she replies that she has more than enough resolve. As long as she can stand before her friends with pride someday, she will endure anything. Seeing her determination, Wolfie decides to pair her up with his trusted companion. With proper guidance, she will grow powerful, but first, she needs to regain her energy. He shoves a slice of pizza straight into her mouth, telling her to eat up. They can finish talking after she is officially discharged, 1 week later. The scene shifts directly to the heart of Vatican City, inside. Cardinal Benedict meets in private with Yaren and Dr. Chewy about the demonic threat. Yaren warns him that the demon army is moving to finish their ancient war. She points out that the ominous red moon is the key trigger behind this looming catastrophe. The prophesied reckoning is approaching faster than anyone anticipated. Benedict rises and asks Dr. Chewy and Yaren to follow him deep beneath the cathedral into secret archives. For the two scholars, walking through these hidden chambers feels like pure paradise. They never believed these legendary underground vaults truly existed until now, locked. Inside rests a forbidden relic, the Bellum Recordum, chronicling the Holy Demon War. Benedict reveals a dark era when humanity was pushed to the brink by demons. Roughly 1,000 years ago, the ancient book right before them is the soul. Record of that forgotten time, he pulls out the volume to reveal its dark contents to everyone. What is written inside reads less like a war and more like an outright massacre. Back then, a crimson moon loomed in the sky 24/7, empowering demonic hordes to banish angels and hunt down humans. With humanity on the verge of extinction, chosen warriors stepped into the fray. Shielded by angels, Benedict flips the page, showcasing the absolute greatest champion of all. A legend who lost every ally, yet single-handedly tore through the fiends. He slaughtered the demon lords and cleaved the blood moon, the illustration proves. The hero he speaks of is Wolfgang, the ultimate powerhouse with unbreakable strength who ended the Holy War, the last barbarian. Tragically, though, a dying demon cursed and sealed him away. Yaren takes over the conversation, informing Benedict that the curse shattered and the legendary barbarian walks with them. Right now, Benedict reels in utter shock after discovering that Wolfgang has awakened. Though the revelation instantly validates every suspicion he held, there is no doubt left. The hero rose again to complete his grand mission of eradicating all devils, knowing that a full-scale demonic invasion will strike the surface very soon. A monstrous horde could erupt onto the earth at any second, while unscrambles to warn Yaren and Dr. Chewy about the approaching cataclysm. The heavens bleed crimson, the red moon returns, not the dragon Valdrova but the devils. Their grand invasion has begun. Suddenly, Yaren's phone buzzes with horrifying news. of the crimson moon and monsters appearing across Seoul, the ravenous beasts, plunge the city into madness, and right then, the chapel itself violently quakes. Benedict delivers another shock. A red moon has manifested directly over the Vatican. Yaren panics over twin blood moons, but An bluntly steps in to clarify that things are far worse than she imagines. The catastrophe is worldwide, as demons swarm every corner of the planet. Humanity is doomed as chaos spreads, revealing horrifying scenes of destruction everywhere. The entire world is completely ringed by ominous crimson moons. Meanwhile, deep on the third floor of Underhell, a terrifying archdemon reawakens after being encased in stone for ages. Devil House expended far too much dark power, manifesting the red moons and summoning the massive demonic legion he amassed over the past 1,000 years. He went all out with this strike to force Wolfgang down into the abyss. His goal is to confront his greatest rival right here in Underhell, where no sunlight exists and the holy blessings of angels mean absolutely nothing. Devil House boasts that he unleashed his most savage demon, Rumi, to the surface. A ruthless monster now marches toward mankind, ready to unleash total carnage. Back inside the church, Benedict announces that the day of reckoning has arrived. He shows Yaren the dark prophecy etched into the record's final chapter, which warns when the red moon that revives demons eclipses the sun, evil shall break through the crust and slaughter every living being on earth. Humanity is left to fight with their own mortal power alone, because heaven's angels can no longer offer divine salvation to protect them. Dr. Chui sinks into sheer despair knowing no help is coming, but Benedicto explains that this is not meant to discourage them, but rather a vital hint for humanity to stand on their own feet, specifically, the mortal heroes who became legendary. Stars, humanity must confront the demon horde using the power of constellations. As the church collapses, Yaren summons her constellation, intruder of the slumbering ruins. Wondering where she got that power, she wastes no time activating it. Harnessing the constellation's power, Yaren and the doctor teleport straight toward the coordinates of the last relic she touched. She invites Benedicto along, but he chooses to stay behind to protect those in need. Meanwhile, a U.S. satellite alerts the Pentagon Command Center to the ominous red moons spreading across the globe. As demonic swarms pour out, enter Patrick Seth, the Secretary of Defense, looking sharp and battle-ready. His gorgeous secretary promptly steps in with an urgent report, warning him about Benedicto's message that the prophesied final apocalyptic war has officially begun. Seth never expected ancient legends to be real, but without missing a beat, he scrambles an F-35 squadron to intercept the demons and target the red moons. Hangman 1 locks onto the celestial anomaly and fires a missile. To his shock, the missile phases straight through the moon before detonating. The military quickly realizes that standard kinetic weapons cannot harm the moon. Just then, a demon ambushes Hangman 1, delivering a devastating punch that shatters the jet into pieces, sending the pilot crashing down. Seth's secretary grimly reports the casualty, confirming Hangman 1 has fallen. Tactical analysts immediately submit their urgent assessment, warning that the red moon is pure concentrated intangible energy, impervious to conventional strikes. Seth orders his forces to engage the demons directly to minimize civilian casualties. He commands Hangman 2 and 3 to eliminate the monster responsible for taking down their squadmate. The remaining fighter jets lock on and unleash a brutal barrage of heavy gunfire, riddling the creature's body with enough lead to obliterate an army. Yet ominous dark energy surges directly from the red moon into the wounded beast. In seconds, the demon fully regenerates, locking eyes on the remaining aircraft. The resurrected demon charges relentlessly straight toward Hangman 2 and 3. The secretary alerts Seth that the celestial moon is actively recharging every demon. Realizing standard military firepower cannot win this fight, Seth makes a drastic call. He authorizes the deployment of Task Force 666. Meanwhile, Yaren and Doc materialize in Seoul. Since the last relic she touched belonged to Wolf, they expect him here, but he is nowhere in sight. Suddenly, a massive demon crashes down before them. Just as they brace for death, they notice the monster is already dying. Before they can question what happened, the demon's slayer suddenly steps into view. A shredded warrior wielding deadly martial arts has already dismantled the beast with ease. He casually asks what Yaren and Doc are doing in Seoul, while both stand frozen in complete shock. Across the globe, America stands as the ultimate military powerhouse. Military did not originally train hunters to battle supernatural demons. Instead, they forged elite warriors to dominate global rivalries and maintain geopolitical supremacy. These specialized troops were created as the ultimate deterrent against foreign adversaries. Pure American military doctrine at work. Everything changed the moment the Red Moon appeared. Global leadership suddenly felt grateful for investing in such overwhelming combat strength beforehand. Leading the counterattack with pure chaotic glee is a heavy machine gun specialist. This smiling maniac is Silver, the powerhouse from Task Force 666. The Constellation Doctor drops pure steel rain from above. That explains everything. Next up is a deadly sniper bent on wiping out demons like thinning hair. This marksman is Isaac, wielding the Constellation Judge beyond the lens. Right beside him stands a beauty, unleashing wild gunfire just for the thrill of battle. Her name is Claire, backed by the Constellation Sister of the battlefield bearing arms. Claire suddenly finds herself ambushed by an eager demon. Luckily, Isaac steps in like a true captain and covers her flank. 4 more monsters rush Claire, but this time the Doctor takes charge, prescribing a brutal storm of hot lead. All 5 threats drop instantly, yet seconds later they rise straight back up. Claire gets visibly annoyed seeing these demons return like a persistent X, but Isaac stays totally cool. Nobody is truly immortal, so they just need to keep slaying them until every extra life burns out. Silver looks way too thrilled hearing that aggressive order. The clash rages on, shifting focus over to Soul. Another beast revives and bellows with a mighty roar, but tears stream down when the real monster strikes. Before that roar finishes, Wolfie wants him down permanently, but the beast keeps rising again. For the 5th time in a row, the stubborn demon springs back to life, but Yaren spots a bright side. The crimson moon shrinks every single time that demon revives. Its power is not endless, though Doc remains deeply worried because nobody except Wolfie can tear down high-ranked demons with such effortless ease. Ordinary hunters would struggle defeating one even once. Yaren immediately tells Wolfie how the moon is shrinking rapidly. Wolfie can easily keep on draining its energy, but a troubling thought lingers. History claimed the demon population vanished 1,000 years ago. Devil House was supposed to be the absolute final outpost, yet this feels identical to ancient warfare. These are not unfamiliar monsters. They recognize him and actually tried speaking. Vicious fiends that normally massacre without mercy suddenly want to negotiate. Something smells rotten beneath the surface. Wolfie remains unaware that this whole spectacle lures him toward the underworld. Regardless, too many enemies clutter the field. Right then, Yaren relays a critical update. Sent by the Hunter Association, widespread demon incursions have erupted across Dijian. The city has barely recovered from the prior raid, leaving defenses dangerously depleted. Yaren urges Wolfie to reinforce Dijian, yet Wolfie insists Dijian will stand. He believes they must finish off this demon first before repositioning anywhere else. Yaren fails to grasp the reasoning behind Wolfie's stubborn call, especially since the Sun Guild is crumbling under intense strain. Meanwhile, in Dijian, a massive purple unicorn takes multiple glowing arrows straight through its hide. Those deadly shots belong to none other than the top hunter, Heian. She feels relieved arriving right before the beast takes innocent lives. Still, this horned monster is hardly the only threat roaming the streets. Far too many swarm the zone for her to handle alone, forcing her to rely on backup allies, which inevitably spikes danger for squads whose attacks bounce off heavy monster armor, just as a demon swings to eliminate one helpless hunter. Heian snipes a clutch arrow across the street to save his life. He survives, but Heian cannot relax for a second because another ally is about to face certain doom. She must stay lightning fast. A single dropped shot will cost someone's life. The crushing pressure mounts, but she continues fighting fiercely too. He needs to ensure history never repeats, keeping her from losing what matters most. Fortunately, the guy is pulled from danger, not by Hun, but by someone else entirely. The ally Wolfie mentioned has finally arrived on scene, telling Heian to rest easy. This guardian Wolfie sent to stand beside Heian and make her stronger is none other than the beast Fenrir. The big leagues have officially entered the game, baby. Catch you guys in the next one.